Yeah. I mean, I would say. That was good. Um. I will see you again. Was she gone?
What is she doing?
She. Um. But I stayed here because it was.
Oh.
And it was my mom.
Very months. And I sent her a text message. That's what's going on. You can talk. And we find this out. You know, I think you guys get out. And these. Like I know she's there. Her best friend is like I can never catch her. And I'm not about to like.
That's a lot of the thing though.
I know. I think I'm just so old, right? I texted my landlord and I was like, "Hey, I'm paying." She's not. What's going on? Yeah, no, it's okay. As long as we want that kind of instance.
Did you see you guys all like meetings and you
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I'm in the for skating here. No, I'm trying to meet you.
Tara?
Yes.
We have a Tara girl.
How's that such a coincidence?
I'm Sigmund.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Yeah, attack the breakfast.
Oh, failed.
Oh. Yeah, I knew it was going to work. I was thinking about it. I'm so close to myself. Not happy.
Here's coffee, God bless. How are you? Good to see you. Congrats on that housing.
That project that you worked, that you,
There were-
announced? Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I think it was a ribbon cutting you did, possibly, right?
Oh.
Oh,
Back there.
I thought it happened at 9. Maybe I'm.
think that's what
It's 3, yeah. Yeah.
Legionnaires.
Yeah. That's pretty.
Oh, yeah. We got a good relationship now with the owners. They're updating everything. So clean. 1,000 units, right? And it's 5 towers. So they found it in sort of here, Preston, we check all that. Right. Have problems that they can't manage. Right, but they're on ground and that for some stuff. They did put something, back when they're, coming into.
Yeah.
That, regionality, so,
But
yeah. They're gonna be working with them, so.
I can't imagine having a building that large.
I think that's free. Yeah. Done. Yeah.
Oh. We're setting up.
Then.
Oh, no, I just wanted. You know what? You must.
Exciting, we're city council. Thanks.
That lit is not.
Your name sounds familiar, but I was here all during. I used to. Yes. No, well. See. Right.
Some research. Rachel. So you. More.
Remember, I'm from uptown.
You're very. I'm organized. Yes. I'm not for that.
See you. It's.
Hello. How are you? Good, how are you? Good, thank you.
Morning, folks.
No, you're not like me, I'm not.
Okay. Right.
Well, look at that.
Should we cross our names?
You're wrong, I'm the best. You're wrong.
You're on,
Yeah.
great.
Oh, okay, sure.
There you go.
Thanks.
Anyway. Shows of issues. I'm gonna throw you out. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Imagine. There, which is right.
Hi.
Good morning, everyone. I just want to let you know we're just running a 2 or 3 minute time.
So.
Let me see you alone.
No news is good news, right? This is great.
Morning.
Just please bear with us. We're still waiting for a few things. We'll get started shortly. Do you have an updated copy for me?
I'm grabbing a few more.
Amazing, thank you. My voice like this talking voice in my office. Right now.
I'm sorry.
How long?
Oh,
yeah. Okay. Oh, that. My friend.
So.
I was up on 155th Street on the west side when we were, I wasn't saying where you going. It was buried in my emails. I flew down. I just ended up going. It totally was like, I was like sitting the other day, like, when are they doing this event?
Yeah.
And then I had some members on the board going, are you coming? And I was like, coming to what?
Morning. Morning. Morning.
Morning, how are you? Right, I don't think they would have even known if I was there.
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I'm doing some work with the Legionnaires Task Force, because we have Legionnaires in one of the buildings. Oh, so I had mentioned you guys.
Yeah, because we had some at Wagner houses,
Okay.
some, you know, during the summer. I don't know,
Yeah. Something down on 79th Street on the west side of town.
Those will be sad with Jack.
Oh,
This one is internal, so it's not the middle,
Like two.
right in the.
Instantly, I
Numbers
top here.
in the water water. It's not activated, so it's heated.
Right.
And here,
Yeah.
It was so mist to come. That's why.
Good morning.
So they, I was telling them
Yeah.
that they, gave out.
I think I heard somebody say, that's crazy, bro.
So it's. And a lot of scenes.
Now I think it's super dangerous, younger people. Probably a lot of, yeah, pretty nice, a lot of like where we are, a lot of it's.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Hi, Anthony.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. I was Grant. Like I was a Grant the other day. Other person who works.
It's not one thing,
Sit between. Bacon Park. Trying to.
Sometimes years.
Yeah.
We owned some property, we had one guy break in, because of some years back, broke in, moved in, it took us 2 years to get him on. With the feet, squatter, right? Yeah, like one piece of mail sent to you there, and then you can't call the cops, they won't do anything.
Which,
No, I don't
Hi,
like
how
that
are
small
you?
brown.
How are you?
Oh, so we're renovating one, this was some, you know, it's even broken.
All is in order.
That's what's been happening.
Yeah, we have White Houses, which is senior development. And I was doing.
You?
Steve as well.
You missed me last month.
So-
I know.
Oh, I just always went visiting his grandparents or something.
Huh?
It's
I
like,
don't recall
and
why
I'm
I
not
didn't.
naive, but you know, it was
Traveling
really late,
to
I
work
guess
or
not.
Oh, that's right, I was in Orlando.
Yeah, you remember?
Yeah.
It's a city
That's
came
right.
in,
Machine gun stuff in Johnson House for like 7
Yeah,
years.
good. Glad. I was just admiring
Nice to
your
have
land. I
Thank
love this.
you, thank
This
you.
font choice was a good choice.
Oh, was it?
Did that come directly from you, Brad? The
That's
font
right. When I
choice?
went to get a picture, I was like, how's this?
You know.
Yeah, I was consulted.
Good.
I guess so.
I was consulted.
You know what?
But I like it.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's
Our
bold.
John, the guy who does our graphics is the same guy who does video.
Ah.
If you notice it.
And I
There are
some
some
clarity.
I'm like, it's anonymous, you know.
But it shows you great, good.
Like,
It shows you great.
Flaming red for
Yeah, exactly.
for liberal people.
Right.
You know, you go to a restaurant,
I
right?
mean,
I was like, why? I didn't even get it. And then they're just like, no, he's complaining, and they get all these. The same thing here. The loudest person in the room doesn't get the most. Just wanna shut them up.
I don't know. It's important.
Hello, how's it going?
What are we saying?
Yes.
What is the purpose of the update?
It's not really interesting.
Yeah, smart house. Is it like bragging? Is it, you know, it's a compliment.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Then they were probably said.
Yeah.
I think they were so. I think that's.
For most things. Everybody. Morning.
That's for most.
Yeah.
I work for that. So very.
Well, yeah, I mean.
I mean, they kind of have a, they like the employees,
They can't change it, so maybe there's like.
You know, like,
Like,
yeah.
Fair
I
enough.
I love it, my best friend.
Okay.
Don't worry about
That's
it.
good. That's good.
You know that I choose the right.
Yeah, so.
Forget the whole rest.
Yeah.
I understand, I understand, but I don't think it's, you know, I go to the buildings, you know, 10 years, there's some of them. On it. You'll have to think, like, you don't need $50 million to be going somewhere. We'll figure it out.
But nobody's going.
They do hire things, do bad.
It'll be on the
They'll
screen.
tell you they don't have. They don't have the money to put security, but then. You know, I wanna know what your profit margins are. You know, you ever realize? How do you know there's not enough?
Yeah.
HPD was supporting housing. I was like, can you tell us how much there is? And they're like, we don't know.
No, I don't know.
Brad, it's been lovely. I've been here. Last night, this morning, I'll be here. Thank you for your office space. This is actually the nicest.
What?
This is one of the nicest meeting places in the city. I know that sounds like a weird thing to say because it's not necessarily.
You know what the crime is?
That's great to hear.
They lowered the ceiling.
Yeah.
This hideous drop. And then, I don't know, it seems like government in the 80s and 90s. You know, underneath these floors. Is, I'm like, you know, I can walk in and say,
I
I
think you should.
see that terracotta tile.
You're kidding. Look, I appreciate you don't have all these lights on because I've worn sunglasses.
Yeah, I'm very much a low light. So I very much appreciate that they don't have everybody.
I cannot do serious brights.
Me neither.
Thank you.
And so to have half the lights off in here is
Very
is a
grateful.
joy.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Morning. Bright and early.
What a creature.
Good
I don't like drooping name tags.
If it brings you joy, I'll bring it in.
Enjoy. Piece of type.
Great. So we'll start in a minute or two. Good morning, everyone.
Thank you.
Just before we officially get started,
Thank
you will have a packet of materials in front of you. It includes the agenda.
Did you want?
It also includes, no, you should have,
I have
oh, just,
Many?
hold on. No, everyone should have one. I think those are extras.
It's under your people.
Yeah, maybe I'll hold on to those for now. Thank you, Tammy. You'll also have a copy of the resolution that's for consideration this morning. You will also have these cards here, which we'll talk about in a moment. I know your rights card and a series of other materials. Okay. Tyler and Dawn, can we start the recording, please? Started. Good morning, everyone. It is 8:43 a.m. Welcome to the March Borough Board meeting. Wonderful to see you all. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started with our roll call. We have a long but exciting agenda in front of us. With that, Community Board 1,
Good morning,
if you can state your name for the
Tammy
record.
Meltzer, Community Board 1. Thank you and good morning.
Okay. Community Board 2. Community Board 3. Community Board 4.
Rachel Lee from CD4,
Okay, and your title?
second vice chair.
Great, thank you for the minutes. Community Board 5.
I'm Yoran Newt, I'm not Bradley Turburn, I'm Yoran Newt Victor, I'm the vice chair of community board.
Great, thank you. Community Board 6.
Sandy McKee, chair of community board.
Great. Community Board 7.
Alex Bell, chair.
Wonderful. Community Board 8.
Valerie Mason, chair.
Okay. Community Board 9.
Edwards, chair.
Community Board 10. Community Board 11.
Dembria, chair.
And Community Board 12.
Anthony Viola, chair.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone.
Sit down, staff.
Sure. And we can also, for our staff that are here in the room this morning, if you can quickly just raise your hand and identify yourselves. We'll start with E.
Hi, E. Wayne, community liaison with CB2 and CB4.
I know you're not staff, but please.
Bernstein, communications for Councilmember Encarnacion.
Wonderful. Thank you for being here.
John Weinberg, General Counsel, Office of the Hanover President, by Hoylman-Sigal.
And my name is Tara, I'm the education policy analyst on the policy team here at DP.
Morning, everyone. Sorry, I'm a little in and out. I'm the director of policy in this office. Nice to see you all.
And that's Esther.
She has a name. But figure our deputy director of community affairs and also rep for CB 11 and 12.
Can our IBO colleagues also introduce themselves?
Yeah, my name is John Mendez, budget and policy analyst with the New York City Independent Budget Office.
I'm Sigrid Lee, also the independent budget office, and I'm the community engagement specialist.
Wonderful. Looking forward to your presentation later. Good morning. I'm Marielle Ali, Director of Community Affairs here at the Manhattan Borough President's Office. And
Brad Hoylman-Sigal, Manhattan Borough President.
wonderful. Thank you, everyone. With that, we're going to go ahead for an adoption of the March 19, 2026 Borough Board Agenda. If I do not hear any objections. Motion, okay, adopted. Thank you. We're also now going to adopt the February 19th, 2026 Borough Board Minutes. Any objections? Okay, so moved. Thank you. And with that, I would like to yield the floor to our Borough President for his report.
Thank you very much. It's good to see everyone this morning. It's a little warmer than yesterday. First of all, happy Women's History Month and Ramadan Mubarak to all who observe. I wanted to thank everyone who joined us last month at two events. We had about 300 folks at our Black History Month celebration at the Student Museum of Harlem. It was really great to see that amazing new space. If you haven't seen it, please check it out. If you need tickets or access to it, let me know. And, you know, it's something I might be able to arrange. It's definitely worth a visit, even by your community board, you know, or your executive committee. It's just such a incredible new artistic resource in the neighborhood. A special thanks for everyone who was at our rescheduled inaugural celebration and community convention last Saturday. It was inconveniently timed on Shabbat in the evening. I mean, we had no choice, but we were gratified by the number of people who were able to make it. We had like close to 1,000 people there. And we announced a number of initiatives, including a Manhattan Tenants Union, a partnership with Beta NYC, which, as you probably know, is housed in this office, to issue community report cards. We're well underway on that, on issues like, city services, trash collection, homeless outreach, dog food. That'll be interesting to see how that rolls out. We've got some tote bags and some other swag for you here. And we're asking folks to give input on civil rights, affordability, these really great cards. We are happy to provide you some to take to your community boards, right, Marielle? Things like what you want to see in the borough, what you love about the borough. Just trying to get that feedback, which is really important at the beginning of our administration. We're hosting a Women's History Month event called, by the way, thank you to Esther Caroline for organizing that Manhattan community convention. And Marielle and the whole team who was there and did an amazing job. Kiara Royer, who's not here right now, was also instrumental in organizing it. Speaking of events, and that's what Kiara helps us put together, is this Women's History Month event called Making Manhattan New York City's Women-Owned Businesses. It's going to be at Roosevelt House on Friday, March 27th, 4 to 6. The first hour is going to be a panel with about 4 or 5 women who own small businesses in Manhattan to get their perspective on entrepreneurship and the challenges they face in business, which I think are very different than what we as men face in business. And then we're going to have a reception. So we are at capacity, but if you need to get in, we'll find a way. Or if you know someone who needs to get in, we'll find a way. And wanted to acknowledge that speaking of Esther, she and I participated 2 weeks ago, or a week ago, was it, in the Hope Survey, which attempts the city's attempt as a federal mandate to count the number of unhoused New Yorkers. We were out until like 2 a.m. And even though it was tiring, it was certainly worth to gather that important information. It's weird. You have to ask everyone who walks by you whether you have a place to sleep, which sounds like a provocation in some respects. Just walking by, like we ran into some business people, clearly, or some people are enjoying a night out, but that's the rules. And so we followed them dutifully. I was very honored to attend the Public Advocates Iftar last month, and as well as the State Attorney General's last evening. To celebrate Eid, our office is having an event on March 27th. That's also Friday. At the Stavros Niarchos Foundation Library at 5 p.m. It's a partnership. It's really through the New York City Public Library. And it's directed for teenagers aged 13 to 18. They're going to have henna, jewelry making, music, food, New York Public Library archives about New York City Eid celebrations that have occurred. And we're also collaborating with Senator Clear and Assembly Member Wright and Councilmember Salam for an Eid celebration on Saturday, the following Saturday, March 21st at 2 p.m. That's going to be at the Children's Aid Dunleavy Milbank Center on West 118. A lot of events coming out. I was very honored to be at the installation of the new co-chaplains of NYPD, including Reverend A.R. Bernard and Cardinal Timothy Dolan. And wanted to also, on another moral front, just speak briefly about the ICE abduction at Columbia University. 2 weeks ago, I've been in touch and had a meeting on Zoom with acting president Claire Shipman of Columbia and NYPD senior leadership about what happened there. To be, frank, it's still kind of unclear as to what the situation was. We're hoping that Columbia provides NYPD with security footage. We don't know if that has yet happened. They say they need a subpoena to do that. It's very curious as to how those events unfolded and why that woman was targeted by ICE. It may be because she had 100,000 Instagram followers. It's not clear. We have organized monthly meetings with elected official colleagues to discuss, and advocates, immigration advocates, to discuss how to respond to the ongoing ICE actions in Manhattan. And I wanted to thank everyone who was able to join the ICE preparedness and training workshop last month. Wanted to let you know that I stood with Mayor Mondani and DOT Commissioner Flynn to announce the implementation of Sammy's Law at 1,300 school locations for this year, which are around school zones, reducing the speed limit there from 20 or 25 to 15. I'm very happy about that because I wrote the bill with Assemblywoman Linda Rosenthal called Sammy's Law, named after a 12-year-old who was just a couple of months shy of his bar mitzvah, and was a ball rolled into the street. He chased it and he got hit by a speeding car and sadly perished. His mother, Amy Cohen-Eckstein, has been a leader in street safety and helped start this movement called Families for Safe Streets, and campaigned, I hate the word tirelessly, but it really does apply to her. She was tireless in her efforts to get this bill across the finish line in Albany, which basically gives New York City home rule over setting its speed limits. The idea that someone in Buffalo should set the speed limit for Brooklyn is crazy. And so Sammy's Law fixes that. Earlier this year, on another note, HUD at the federal level proposed a new rule that would effectively block mixed immigration status households from receiving any public housing benefits. This means that if you were living in NYCHA with a roommate or a family member who did not have immigration status here in the US, you could lose your housing. And this would impact thousands of all of our constituents. 5,000 kids across New York City could face displacement. So we're circulating a sign-on comment from Manhattan elected officials during this rulemaking period where public comment is requested. And I guess there's an issue as to whether community boards would sign on to that or not. But it's something that you may want to consider as a community board. Maybe it's something you would, for those of you in particular that have a lot of NYCHA in your districts, you may want to look at it, do your own, or sign on to ours, perhaps, as a community board with elected officials. The immigration advocates who joined us for our meeting a couple of weeks ago said that these comments with public officials, including community board members, do make a difference. And the longer the list of elected officials, the more pause is considered for the implementation of such a onerous policy. So that will be circulated, I guess, at some point.
Yeah, and everyone has a copy. We'll also send it electronically.
Yeah, so if you want to pass it in your own board or consider it, or maybe we want to do a Borough board resolution next month, it's something I'm just throwing out there. My predecessor, Controller Mark Levine, did a fantastic job in creating something called the Volunteer Corps. We're going to restart that. We have had a lot of interest, particularly from older and younger New Yorkers, and how they can get involved in civic life. And one way, of course, is through the community board, but there are other ways, including nonprofit organizations that are looking for help. And the idea that Mark started is to link volunteers up with groups like Big Apple Greeter, which I just found out yesterday was started here in the Manhattan Borough President's Office by former Borough President Ruth Messenger. And they're located on the 20th floor, but they're always looking for volunteers. It's especially around FIFA and this, incredible tourist influx that's going to happen around the World Cup this summer. So the volunteer corps is a good place for people to access both Big Apple Greeter and other volunteer groups throughout the borough. And I'll close with this, a couple of data points. We received over 800 community board applications. We're processing them. Our CAU flow unit is reviewing those applications. We're partnering with some civic groups on processing those applications for the next step. I really believe at the end of the day, we want credibility in our appointment process. You're only as effective, in my opinion, as you are a credible representative of your community. And so we hope we can get the seal, the good housekeeping seal of approval on our selection process from organizations like Citizens Union and the League of Women Voters. That'll make your job, I think, easier and make your resolutions more effective if people believe the process was fair and transparent. So I just wanted to point that out. We're reviewing the mayor's preliminary budget. Of course, we're going to be talking about that and your input on that, and we're going to have our response soon. And then very shortly, if not minutes away, we're going to have our public hearing on the preliminary budget for FY27, followed by a discussion and vote on the Borough Board's fiscal year 27 preliminary budget. I look forward to hearing more about your priorities about the bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Borough President. If we could just maybe have a few minutes for questions.
Oh, please.
It's just a logistical question about the HUD rulemaking. Do
Yeah.
you know when the deadline is to comment on it?
I believe it's in April.
The end or beginning? April. Mid? Okay.
Thank you. Tammy?
Two questions for you. One, thank you for speaking at the civic session. And one of the questions that came out afterwards, our borough president spoke at a civic session for PSIS 276 was how young can students be to volunteer? So it's a direct connection to what we're talking about. And thank you for engaging. They were like, wow, here's this guy.
Yeah.
And the question at the end was, how young can people volunteer to get involved? Because
I think as young as their parents, provide consent.
Okay.
That would be my response. Of course, 16 for community boards, but we would want, and I believe it's on the, I believe under a certain age, we do require parental consent. So.
Thank you. And secondly, for Sammy's Law, super excited to see that getting rolled out. I find it very interesting. I believe, and I don't know if it's true, that the schools need to request to have that implemented in front of their school. But because the burden is then put onto the school itself, when you are looking at a district where you may have two schools on the same block, and only one knows about it, one applies, the other is not covered. So I think that there's an opportunity for improvement, for implementation and rulemaking that should put back on the city to take a look that if it's on the same block, even if it's the side of a school, that there should be a requirement to take a look at it a little bit more holistically.
Okay.
Because it seems a little unusual. I mean, the community board can always reach out to the other schools, but that doesn't seem to be.
Well, it's my understanding that the mayor's going forward with this at, the 1,500 locations. I'm not certain that he is waiting for schools to request it, but I'll follow up on that. The public advocate, when we rolled this out, raised a very good point, which was, what's the plan for signage and awareness around this new, implementation of Sammy's Law. So that's another point, but I'll follow up on that.
We got our notification for our first school.
Okay.
And it's there's another school on the following block, same road,
Mhm.
side of the school on the other block, and it's not included, and one's.
It's not included.
No, and the school that
That's true.
requested it is 240 kids, the other school is 700, and so I'm kind of like.
Yeah.
We actually heard from a school who wasn't included, and we reached out to DOT to ask them what their metric were
Criteria.
for determining who should be included and who shouldn't. So once we get some of those answers, we'll share it with groups and advocate for schools to be included that aren't.
Do you want that additional
metrics.
school part of it? Because we can also make that request.
Yes.
Okay, let's do that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay,
I've sent the notification, but I'm happy to connect you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With them,
that'd be.
I mean,
great.
we can double.
Yeah.
Down on your request.
that'd be great.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Just one more. Hi, Rachel
Hi.
from CD4. So I understand there's a new cycle of the EEO LGBTQ training
Yes,
available. So our district manager told us that this is required for both CD staff and board chairs, but currently there's no way for board chairs to access the training on their own. So wanted to just request some support there. It's
Okay.
due next week.
Problematic.
Welcome to what we.
Yeah.
Wait, so there's no, wait. So there's no way for the board chair to access it?
Yeah.
Unless they have a
I
CB
think
email.
it's quite easy. You receive emails from, I think, Xavier.
Yeah.
And you tell Xavier and he adds your email and it works.
You have to have a city government email.
Work the email.
Okay,
Sorry, just if I may, thank you, Alex, really appreciate it and great question and happy to take this offline as well. So Xavier is the acting EEO officer here, and so he is the person who you have may have reached out to all of you regarding compliance. As you know, that particular training, the power of inclusion, is due at the end of this month. I have spoken with the DCAS. I've also spoken with Xavier, as well as the office that leads the trainings. We have been told that if you do not have ideally you would have a city, email from OTI. If you do not, please let us know. Xavier will help you get access to the DCAS platform. If you're having issues, we can take it offline. It sounds like maybe there might be some issues, Valerie, and I'm happy to work with you to support you with that.
From Xavier he was working on it.
We
We can follow up. We can follow up.
We need to follow up on that.
Months now.
Is Xavier here this morning?
No, but I can follow up with him and happy to kind of speak with you all afterwards in terms of, just making sure that everyone's in.
Let me know
compliance with those
personally,
meetings.
if you can't get in. You all have my cell. So if you're hitting a wall at some level of the bureaucracy, wherever it is, feel free to reach out to me personally.
And we'll make sure that you get what you need. Thank you.
Two things on that. I took mine in October of last year. So for any of us who were here in October, I did actually file that already with Xavier because he just needs to show the proof of it under the new borough president. So you could send your certificate to Xavier and that will cover you at least for a while. So if that's helpful for people, I hope so.
Thank you, Tammy. Super helpful. Again, I'll pick up with each of you afterwards, because I know there's some challenges with some, and it's very confusing. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, but we want to make sure that you have what you need to be able to complete the training. Any other questions for the borough president?
Could I ask a question? Are these trainings?
Meeting.
Well, section. Are there trainings throughout the year?
Yes.
So this is
correct.
one of
This is one of
multiple, okay,
multiple trainings, exactly. Yep.
thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. So with that, we will now move into the portion of the public hearing. You will have seen that it was posted online. It was also shared via our newsletter. We have received signups from members of the public. And so I'm just checking with Dawn, our colleague. I have the list here. For each of the speakers, they have signed up via our form. They have a maximum of 2 minutes for your statements, and then we will call on the next person. So with that, the first person on the list is Jim Baker. I'm just gonna text him. Jim Baker, if Jim can be promoted, please. Over to you, Jim. 2 minutes. Thank you for joining.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me. First of all, it's great to be here today, even if it's virtual over Zoom. The 2 minutes that I want to speak to you about or through is basically about the issue of artificial intelligence and AI contracts and the apportionment of money in the budget for ed tech, which I think is something on the order of $30 million. My colleagues and I have been working really hard to ensure that our students in public schools here in New York City, our kids and our, family members and such, have the most opportunity they can to learn, and to learn without screens. As we know, this has been a great success, screen-free schools. I'm all for it. The empirics seem to be aligned with good outcomes. But we know also that the impact of screens and ed tech in the classroom and all of this has led to some pretty serious shortfalls. The cognitive offloading and all of these different factors that we know are the result of sustained screen time and interaction with chatbots and that kind of thing. I think it's really important that we give money to teachers to teach and to open up the schools to reading books and doing things that enable real learning without being in the pocket of ed tech. I think there are some really dangerous applications for this. I'm really concerned about the, backdoors between technologies and technology companies like iReady and, policing and surveillance and all of these issues that are near and dear that have been mentioned. And so I just want to make sure that the budget is transparent on the issue and to voice my concern about these, these eminent AI contracts or any kind of ed tech stuff going on. I don't know if I've got any time left, but I see it. Thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you, Jim. We appreciate your input, and thank you also for providing written testimony. Before we head on to the next speaker, I do want to acknowledge that we've also been joined by the chairs of CB3. Welcome. As well as Valerie, as well as Marquise, so CB2 and CB10. Thank you for being here this morning. Moving on to the next speaker, we do ask if you would like, we'd love to see your faces. So our next speaker on the list is Alyssa East. If you can turn your camera.
I'm sorry, hang on. I don't have an option to turn it on, I don't think.
No worries.
Okay, well, over to you, and your 2 minutes starts now. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. We were all told that educational technology would be the great academic equalizer that would make our children smarter. After 20 years of data, we are now discovering that the opposite is true. According to Fortune magazine, the US has spent $30 billion to ditch textbooks for laptops and tablets. The result is the first generation less cognitively capable than their parents. I'm sure this widely reported finding is as shocking to you as it is to me. The 2027 New York City budget projects $33 million in educational technology incentive spending alone, while other DOE budget lines support ed tech investments as well. And to what end? Enrollment is declining, test scores have nosedived along with literacy rates, the achievement gap is widening, leaving underperforming students even farther behind. The College Board reports alarming trends in college readiness and performance. And that's just the academic side of our children's educational experiences. Across city classrooms, children are logged in and tuned out to their education, their teachers, and each other. I call upon this office to closely examine what any DOE educational technology spending is actually buying, and to reallocate educational technology funding towards what has worked for generations of kids, books and pencil and paper learning led by teachers. Additionally, I propose that any ed tech the city allows the DOE to purchase and employ be subject to independent vetting prior to implementation that demonstrates that these costly tools are equal to or better than what our teachers have been doing for decades, expertly instructing children in their subject areas and in how to be human, the most important subject area of all, and one that no technology can replicate. Thank you.
Thank you, Alyssa. Okay, moving on to our next speaker. We are now joined by Dr. John Derek Norval.
Dr. John is not on right now. Our next person will be Michelle Winfield.
Thank you, Don. Michelle, over to you.
Hi,
Good
Shelley.
morning. How are you?
Well,
Oh, this is wonderful. Thank, during these times when budgets are being downsized, I want to focus on funding theater, music, and the arts. We can't live by bread alone. There is a need for creative expression throughout the Manhattan community. Months ago, I attended Woody King Jr.'s new Federal Theater NFT, The Wash. It was a play that depicted washerwomen in 1881, Black and white, who joined forces and staged a strike to protest for higher wages. They won. This theater production evoked feelings of joy, laughter, pain, anguish, and triumph. We need funding for new federal theater to continue their excellent work. And I thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. Thank you for your testimony. I'm just going to then do, it looks like some of the other people who signed up may not be on the Zoom, but I'm just going to do a quick call just to make sure. Nicholas Leo Ryan. Dr. Jordan Derek Norvell. Okay. Sharir Khan. Okay, and then lastly, Mark Shiflett. Okay. And Dawn, I know, just so we can triple check that none of those colleagues are online, the members of the public.
You're correct, they're not here.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dawn. With that, that does conclude our public hearing. Those members of the public also did submit written testimony, which our office has as well. Thank you, Dawn. I also want to acknowledge that we've been joined by Council Member Brewer online. Good morning, Council Member. Okay. Great. So now we are going to move on with the discussion and adoption of the Manhattan Borough Board fiscal year 27 preliminary budget response. You should all have a printed copy. Please, if you can refer to this copy, there was one addition that we did make this morning. So this is the latest copy for you all.
Can you tell us what the changes?
Yeah, we're going to go through the document in a moment. So with that, I would like to have Esther maybe just give a brief. Sorry. To give a brief overview, and then we'll head into the discussion and adoption of the document.
okay.
Hi, everyone. So as we have discussed in past meetings, the Borough Board has a charter mandated responsibility to respond to the mayor's preliminary budget. This, what you have in front of you, is our draft, which was our attempt to consolidate all the different priorities we heard about from your offices, including priorities that came up in Borough Board meetings in past years and this year. And we will shortly move through them by section, and we'll open the floor for potential amendments. And we will go slowly and make sure we hit everything. So don't worry if you are not sure if you missed a section or whatever else. And then once that's completed, we will create a final document with all such amendments and circulate it before we publicize and share with the mayor and city councils.
Thank you, Esther. And so before, and just to add on to that, thank you. I realized that obviously it was a tight timeline. So some of the responses that you all submitted, because of the timeline may not be reflected here. However, that's why you also have those community board inputs that you have to submit that are specific to your district. This is very much at the policy level. So it does not go into specific projects in each of the communities. So I do just want to flag that just so you are aware, because that's the purpose of this. That's where your input as community boards comes in, and it's really important to highlight those hyper local projects that are important. Okay. Great. So with that, can I have a motion to consider the Manhattan Borough Board fiscal year 27 preliminary budget response?
I so move.
Okay, second. Okay, great, thank you. So moving on to the first page, we can start with the overview section. I'll give colleagues just a moment. Dawn, if you could please scroll down. It's also on the screen as well, for everyone to take a look. The overview section is there. I'll give colleagues a moment. The way we'll do this, because it is a long document, we are going to approve without any objections. Obviously, if there's an objection or an amendment, then we can pause and make those amendments. But just want to give everyone a moment to review that overview section. Okay.
Hi.
Valerie?
When we submitted our budget, on Monday, we wanted to request that instead of dipping into the rainy day fund and the pension fund, that we ask the administration to look at efficiencies within departments before we go rating the fund that will have a long-term effect on the stability of the finances of the city. So if we could add some language in here about, before we start dipping in.
Okay.
It's in our letter that.
Okay. Without objection, can we accept that as a friendly amendment? Great, thank you.
I
Sandy?
just might note, I think it is already, that's one of the proposals, is to look for efficiencies. We asked for looking at higher levels of efficiencies. I think they asked for 2.5% to 3%. And our board felt it was important to look for something more than that, right? And we would end up very effective. So they follows through on that, but asking more and more.
Yeah, exactly. I'm assuming there's no objections, so more.
And it was more than 2%, you said?
I believe I can't remember exactly if it was 2 or 3% that was in the budget. But they felt it was quite low, that would be very easy to attain. They wanted to.
Okay, great. Without objections, the overview section is approved. Thank you. We'll do kind of a final approval at the end and a final actual vote. Okay, moving on to, and just if you can, as you're making your comments, just if you can speak loudly, just to make sure that we're capturing those points. Moving on to housing affordability and tenant protection. So I'll give everyone a moment to take a look. Tammy?
Community Board 1 actually has had a very low amount of production, including with the part of my report today is about the city of Yes and the production of affordable housing or lack thereof. And the fact that 5 World Trade was announced that they would not be able to build with affordable housing at the current time. So I'd like to be included. We have a ton of displacement that's happened since 9/11. Actually, we gained and then lost. And because the city actually does not track affordable housing or stabilized loss, there is no accounting for that on anywhere in the records. You would have to, as an individual, go back and look at tax records per building. That I think somewhere in here, we do need to account for that.
Do you want to encourage the city to have a tracking mechanism so that there's a public? Yeah.
Correct. And that would include not just addition housing, but loss of affordable housing, loss of rent stabilized housing beyond the NYCHA and Section 8 systems.
Great. Without objection? Okay.
You like to be included in that too.
Yeah, I think this is citywide.
This is citywide, yeah.
I mean, we're #1 in units lost over the last 11 years.
Yeah.
And so, and that's where kind of those specific, your kind of specific responses come in.
Right. But this references Harlem and Upper Manhattan. So
Right.
we don't want to be left out from the Upper Manhattan.
Yeah, neither do we.
I think it should say citywide because it's a problem in every
Or
district.
borough-wide.
Yeah, borough-wide.
Okay, so borough-wide, is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
like the reference to Harlem, but.
Yeah, and I like the reference to Manhattan. I mean,
I'd be happy to say in rapidly gentrifying neighborhoods if that, and include as examples, because both Valerie and I have.
Including but not limited to.
Including not limited to sounds lovely, because if you
Okay,
think
Great.
about.
Okay.
thank you. Great. Without objection?
So the change would be instead of the word especially, it would say including but not limited.
And
That's
then we'll
correct.
list the neighborhoods.
And it would say quickly gentrifying, I think is the right word.
So the words Harlem and Upper would be removed as well.
No.
Oh, it would just say quickly as, okay.
And when we recirculate this
Yep.
in its final form with the edits, you'll have another chance to
Exactly.
make tiny edits. As long, without objection.
Yep, without objection.
The substance, as long as the substance doesn't change, I think we can incorporate any nits that you might see after this meeting.
Great.
So
Thank you.
Claire,
We're saying gentrifying neighborhoods and communities of color,
Yeah.
because although I may not be ethnically diverse, we were socioeconomically diverse, which we no longer, we're rapidly marching into the have-nots.
Okay.
Territory.
Thank you, Abby. Esther, you final point?
yeah, I was gonna clarify that. So the
Thanks.
language,
Great.
And we're
Thank
just
you.
coming completely unopposed.
Okay, thank you. We'll move now on to New York City Public Housing. So this is the next section. I'll give everyone a moment to review. Can we adopt this section without objection?
I have a question. So I know that this is mentioned as part of the civil rights section, the legal services, but
Mhm.
one thing that we're seeing in CB4 is the need for legal protection and representation, maybe translation services for tenants undergoing or soon to be undergoing the redevelopment. So wondering if there might be a helpful mention of that, maybe as part of the second or third paragraph, where we're listing kind of the impact that the residents are facing.
Okay. Without objection? Adam?
That's Rad Pack, kind of, are we talking about that? I'd like some kind of something about disclosure. From the management companies and we're having difficulty understanding how much they're making. And when we ask them to do certain improvements, they say that they don't have the money. And I don't know how we're supposed to know that if we don't know the business model that these private management companies are making when they come into Rad Pack. There's some kind of mechanism in place. I mean,
how would we frame that in a budget or as part of the budget process?
I guess oversight into pack conversions. And then, I guess you could get more specific, but that covers a lot, but I think it's the umbrella of it, because we're being asked, tenants are being asked to decide on this, and I don't think they have enough information to be making informed decisions on this.
So we want more resources for NYCHA to build out its public information. Public information sharing about A, B, C, and D, including oversight of the developments and needs.
Yep.
And transparency on the financial.
I like that too. That's.
Sounds great.
Thank you. Without objection? Okay. Moving on to the next section. Homelessness and support services. Again, we'll take a moment. Valerie?
Well, I don't know if you're following us in the news, but our shelter situation is ongoing. And I just feel like, and it happened again last night, which I was gonna report on, but I think we need something in here about what our homeless services are being spent on. There's a lot of feeling in my community that the system that we're using isn't really helping anyone. People who are homeless, especially single people, are reluctant to go into the shelter system because of the way it's set up. So we're spending a lot of money as it is it really effective? And I think I would like to see something in here about an evaluation of how this is really working, given the amount of money we're spending and how everyone wants to house everyone, every New Yorker that needs housing.
Without objection? Okay, Madam?
We made a specific budget request, but it covers the city, the 1515 program, for supportive housing. I mean, childhood homelessness, I think, in public schools is at all-time highs. Clearly, there's not being, enough done if that's the case. So we had requested that the 1515 program include single-parent families and homeless shelters that are not suffering, where the head of the household not necessarily suffering from a substance abuse disorder or serious mental illness. And what's interesting is the HRA said that that request had been accommodated, but that group was not added in. So, I don't know, I think that's something worth considering. They're basically adding another demographic covered by 1515.
Okay, without objection? Great, thank you.
One thing I don't know how to put in here with supportive services and the struggles that we are having with the way that the shelter service conversations are. The fiscal reward for locations is tied to the highest service need, not necessarily for the developer, not necessarily the best fit in community. I speak basically from a safe haven shelter that's attached to a school, a pre-K to 5 school. Everybody said a shelter was a great idea there as long as it was a family shelter. We have the school services, but putting something there, it's been a struggle with the community. We've had 3 or 4 conversations exactly like this due to limited real estate. And the questions start to become, what is the cost benefit for the community when you have services that the community can provide to support families? And we're told, well, we don't have that need. And then we sit at this table and another community board says, a family shelter was just announced in our neighborhood when the night before we're being told that the need is for this and not for that. So I don't know how to reflect that in here, that how we determine locations and assign for fair share needs to have a real community support system and look at versus it's an open RFP for the city and the highest give back for the developer. It's a real estate deal. Yeah. DHS has said that in a public meeting. This is about a real estate deal. So somehow in support services and homeless, when we're talking about shelters, we need to consider other opportunities. We have hospitals that have closed in the city that could have been turned into safe haven models. And I'm not sure why none of those things are being looked at from a holistic perspective. And I don't know how to do that, Esther.
Yeah, I think we can ask for, similar to how we included this in the previous section, just more resources generally to engage communities in the siting of new services and the structures of new services.
I'm not sure that really addresses it.
Yeah, I think that's
they know the community's complaint, so they're gonna assume that's what that request is. It's about airing our complaints, but we want a real change in how they look at places to locate shelter.
But this is a budget.
So I don't know how we fit that. This seems like a policy recommendation that maybe we should think about in a separate resolution, or is there a way to fit it into this specific budget resolution?
I think the financial incentive models for developers need to be reviewed for contextuality. And it's not just. Valerie,
I think this ties into the whole idea about looking before you're tapping into a rainy day fund or thinking about increasing anyone's taxes, looking at what the budgets of these agencies are and how the funds are being spent, and really, and who are those, how is that money benefiting the intended, recipients of the shelters in the communities? Because the outcry really is the only people who are benefiting right now from HSS are developers.
And people, the people that they eventually serve, we're not saying that, but the greatest benefit and reward is not balanced.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I think the budget, whatever the budget is, needs to be reevaluated in terms of like a cost benefit analysis.
So maybe in our request for commensurate investment in shelter outreach and homelessness prevention, we want to include something about an audit of how community responsive the present services actually are, and consider new steps in the process to make sure that that the community response is actually included in the final product. I don't know exactly how to frame that, but we can try to put something in. If someone has a recommendation for a specific language, I think we'll hear it.
Can we get back to you?
Yeah.
Sure.
Maybe we can.
We can put a placeholder here.
And put something together.
We can put a placeholder here. Yep.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Okay, moving on to asylum seekers, immigrants, and civil rights. Again, we'll give you a moment to review and then we'll open the floor. Without objection, to adopt this section. Okay, great. Amended. Okay, moving on to healthcare access and behavioral health.
Is behavioral health also, apologies for my hand, is that also related to homelessness and support services, or is it, how is it specifically outlined as different?
I would say that they are different buckets of services, but they are obviously deeply interrelated. So there will be a little bit of repetition, certainly.
So I think from Community Board 12's perspective, there should be some framing around addiction services as that interrelates with mental health needs. As I think we shared in our statement, what our district has been facing is quite a proliferation of drug use, which of course is oftentimes the result of mental health needs. So I would advocate for, especially in this last paragraph, a sentence going in for the need for more funding for addiction services in particular, such as On Point and NYC.
Without objection?
Do we also add addiction services for online for kids? I mean, we have Yonder, most schools now have Yonder patches, so it's not an issue in schools. But is that something that is in the framework, or should it's just in the general bucket? Which is fine. I don't need to add, just questioning.
I wonder if that may be better suited for the last section.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. That's why I'm appreciate it. Thank you.
No, good point. Great.
One more.
Yep.
For the penultimate, the second to last paragraph, when we're talking about gender affirming care, this is something we're going to be calling out on our comments as well, but I think gender affirming care is not just something that needs to be preserved and protected. I think this is something that has to be expanded in light of some other hospitals recently moving to cease gender affirming care. So H&H should receive more funding and support.
Without objection? Great, thank you. Moving on to the next section, public safety and emergency readiness.
So my one comment on here, their public safety is amazing, but in Lower Manhattan, we are in a confluence of issues where that word now is used to the level by the national and state level buildings in our district and assets, that it has become untenable. And I'm not sure where we can put in here. It's beyond emergency readiness and public safety. We have just the total amount of things that are being closed off is actually anti-general public safety, but it is safety done for the particular asset. So, for example, closed walkways, inaccessibility to the water in some places, closed streets. I'm not sure. I think that there needs to be something in here where there has to be a public review that balances. Not everything can be counterterrorism. I'm sorry. Like, I understand how important it is to control and monitor and digitize and do everything for the assets that we have. But at some point, public safety is compromised when everything is shut down and closed off and you have to reroute public. And I say this from being a 9/11 survivor.
That'd be more appropriate to put in parks and open space. And just to say, like, open the space up.
I got closed streets.
That's different space.
I have streets, I have walkways, I have parks, I have things that it's just, it actually impinges on public safety if you can't get there.
Any other points regarding Tammy's suggestion?
I wonder just in the second paragraph as it ends. No, these aren't numbered pages. So where it says the city's capital plan must address precinct infrastructure. Maybe comma without obstruction to public pathways and public access, something like that.
Yep, I love that. That's perfect. Thank you.
Without objections? Or you wanted to, okay.
Sorry,
Sorry, just want to.
in our past budget recommendations, in the public safety realm is where we address concerns regarding bikes. So when I read this and I didn't see bikes, I was like, well, what happened to that? But now that seems to be in transportation. But if you come to my community board, bikes are a public safety issue. So I don't know, cross-reference.
So maybe
maybe
when we get to the transportation section, we can complete the language there and then duplicate some of it for the public safety section we can return.
Yeah, just so we're keeping that.
Just to make sure it's explicitly connected to public safety.
So
Sorry, 1 second.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
So-
tagging to that, it's a huge conversation for 1, 2, and 3 when it comes to like Canal Street and around the Holland Tunnel. And transportation has completely told us they are not enforcement. They cannot help with that. So it does need to go in somewhere for NYPD and public safety, because they're the ones who do both crossing guards, which is something that's missing from here. It's not DOE either. And the entire system for crossing guards needs to be rethought to provide equity in here, and the bicycle safety has to do with finding a way to do some type of enforcement of some kind.
Thank you, Tammy. Without objection to that addition? Okay, Adam?
Can we have vending in here? Enforcement for vending.
What do you mean by that vending?
Have you been to Canal Street?
So like the
Street vendor. So it goes for any place at a high level of attraction of tourists where you have street vending, and some of it.
Without permits?
Without permits. Some of it has been cleaned up, like Fifth Avenue was cleaned up. It looks much better over there near Rockefeller Center.
Yeah.
But that's the last place that's been cleaned up. And they're coming back to the Brooklyn Bridge right now. They're coming back.
I think from Community Board 12's perspective, we want to be really careful about that, because the produce vendors in our district are the backbone for a lot of families to access groceries.
Yeah.
And so if we're going to say enforcement of unlicensed or unpermitted street vendors, I want to be very careful.
In high tourist zones or high traffic zones, would that be
As long as that can't be then abused by
And-
enforcement.
Yeah.
Thank you, and I appreciate this exchange. And then we recognize that obviously this looks very different across different
Yeah.
communities. Can I make a recommendation that maybe this is taken up in your respective responses as your community boards?
It has been for us for two administrations, and we're not getting better, we're getting worse. So I'm not sure, and I completely agree with you, because we have that flip, that we also have that over by Chinatown that's really critical, that we need those vendors.
Yeah.
Those vendors are critical lifeline to people who can't afford Whole Foods. That's-
No, I have something else to say. I want to chime in. I agree with Anthony, but at the same time, we have vendors who are selling similar products to the stores in front of them, and it's hurting the small businesses. So that's just something to consider, like the people paying a lot of rent, that are selling the same product. You know, these are not people who are making a ton of money, so
We're
that's just.
limited to products and not food service.
I think that would have a tough time in court. I was just thinking that, but even just limiting it to dry goods, I think you're discriminating against certain vendors for not having a permit that technically applies to all vendors.
But unless you're talking about illegal counterfeit.
Like counterfeit product.
Oh, I see. That's what you
Counterfeit
would-
product.
Oh,
is
Fake
really-
bags and stuff like that.
Because the way that.
So just because I want to move the
Counterfeit
conversation,
product.
does that sound like
I wouldn't object.
a
to that.
good
No.
kind of
Yeah.
middle ground?
Mhm.
That the line would be illegal counterfeit products?
Yes, because the new rules that the city put in under the last administration took the foundation for figuring out what's counterfeit. And made it impossible to do so.
Okay.
I would-
I'm
Sorry.
no, go ahead.
I would just urge some caution in how we frame enforcement, since there's been some pattern recently in those getting deported, having had a direct touch with law enforcement around this issue, and there may be a way to like consciously frame it.
So the way that the city under the last
I
administration
know,
changed the
right.
rules is if the product is seized, unfortunately, it's just retrieved the next day, and there's no opportunity to actually determine the counterfeit because of the way that the rules work. There's no accountability, there's no way to figure out if it's counterfeit really at this point, because just more product keeps coming back. So the pipeline got broken on the enforcement issue, which is kind of widely known by the vendors vending these items.
So, just to be clear,
I know you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater here, kind of a conversation, but if we can't get any type of enforcement on illegal counterfeit products for vending on the streets, then we're gonna not be able to, we already have the same problem that Adem has.
okay, I think that we had a final point on this.
No.
No, or you had another point though.
About something, yeah. I don't
Okay,
know.
just one second, I want to finish. Sorry, just if we can, yeah, I think these are really important things and we should certainly discuss them, but I also want to be mindful and kind of again, that difference between the borough response and your community response. Just to kind of keep that in the back of your minds as we kind of continue to engage with this resolution. It sounds like we're going to, what? That's what I'm kind of confirming, are we giving the illegal counterfeit products? But it sounds like there's some contention, right? Or just a little bit of back and forth?
I think this is really much more each individual community based, and that's the strongest way to address it.
And you can be more specific that
And
way. It
yes.
seems like they're different.
Okay,
connotations.
is there objection to removing that reference and having each community board do it? If not, we can open it up for a vote on this
Would you remind
particular
us which
issue.
reference again? Which reference?
It's the reference to having public safety work on counterfeit street vending.
Which it's not presently in the draft. It was suggested as an additional inclusion.
Correct.
Can we just say on a community by community basis? To have a distinction between high tourist areas and. Where it's not.
I think that goes to Sandy's point about maybe the community
Yeah.
and then address it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think because there's differing views on this, I think there's a recommendation if someone would like to motion to call a vote on including that amendment in the resolution.
I'd call it.
Okay,
You just know what that actual.
so the actual, so the actual language, Esther, if you wouldn't mind repeating it, and then we'll go through the vote.
Sure. So this would be some language that says on a community by community basis, considering where there needs to be further enforcement for use of illegal counterfeit products.
Selling of illegal
The
counterfeit.
selling of illegal, yeah.
Okay, great. So we're gonna go for, there was I didn't hear a
Motion.
second.
Second,
Okay, there's a second by Adem. CB1,
Yes.
CB2,
Yes.
CB3,
Yes.
CB4,
I need a little bit more time to think about this, but yeah, sure. It's not really.
let me
not
go
really-
through a round
yeah.
and then I'll come back. Okay, so I'll come back to 3 and I'll come back to 4, CB5.
No.
Okay, CB6. Sorry, Jessup, I need to hear the votes. CB6,
I'm going to abstain. I know that's a
Okay.
no vote, but it just does not
No.
affect. us.
okay, CB7, no. CB8,
We abstain.
okay. CB9,
Yes.
CB10,
no,
CB11,
yes,
yes, Adem,
Yes.
okay. CB12,
No.
okay. And then just going back to CB3,
Abstain, sorry.
Abstain.
Sorry.
no. And then CB4,
I abstain.
abstain. Okay, the vote does not pass. It is not included in the Borough Board resolution. Down. Sorry, just make sure I have my notes right. Again, you have the option to add it in your community board specific response. Do you have a final point on this section?
oh yeah, Office of Community Safety, the mayor
Yeah.
mentioned that he might fund it with like 5 billion in an executive budget, but I'd like it in here.
Sure.
So I don't know if it's even been created, but I'd say creation, implementation and adequate funding.
He's actually gonna sign an EO today. It was announced last night, so we'll hopefully get a few more details, but we can put in an ambiguous line supporting the creation of some office of community safety.
We're against that.
We'll put it up to the crowd.
I mean, I don't have authority to vote on that, and I'm not sure if we're asking for efficiencies, why we're creating more agencies and divisions.
Well, it'd be a mayoral office. It wouldn't be a department without a bill. But there's a bill pending in city council, but it hasn't been passed. So it sounds like the mayor is creating an office within his office for it.
If that expands the budget, I'm not in favor of it.
Well,
Okay, just maybe a final point, and then if someone wants to call a vote, 'cause it sounds like there's differing views. Adem?
I think there needs to be expanding the budget for it one way or another. I don't think the NYPD is adequately trained in how to respond to nonviolent issues such as someone that is suffering from substance abuse and acting out with a mental illness. So you either have to divert that funding into additional training for the NYPD or funding it through this office. So I think it's got to happen one way or another, and it's going to cost money. So
Thank you. Just, it sounds like, again, we do not have consensus on this particular amendment. So if you can restate what you're asking to be added, and if someone wants to call a motion to put this to vote.
well, you said more a general support line, which I would defer to you to suggest to me. I was just going to say to ensure the creation, implementation and adequate funding of this office, but I don't know if there's a better way to say it.
Sure, so I think just so everyone has the information, there was a report yesterday, and I'm sure we'll be getting more information today, that the mayor will be signing an executive order creating an office of community safety, so not a separate agency or department. This office of community safety, we don't have much detail, but we think they'll be consolidating a few different city-run programs, such as Be Heard and other programs that respond to mental health crises. And they'll be consolidating it under this office. I don't have much more detail. I would say because we don't have much more detail, it may be difficult to vote on that right now. So if someone has a motion for a general line of support, then we can hear that in terms of, some consolidated effort to house community safety. Yep.
Could it be tied into efficiencies? Because I think one of the questions that we have in a budget crisis is we're talking about efficiencies. We put that in the overview. And the question is whether or not this agency, no matter where it's housed, creates efficiencies versus adding another layer. Like if it's something that ropes together and creates a more efficient, streamlined environment, that potentially you're saving 5 million to create this $5 million, that's one thing. But if we're adding on top of in a budget crisis, that doesn't sound like sound fiscal management. And if you can find a way in your unbelievably great verbiage to get that through, then I think that's.
Yeah, I think there's been a general consensus among service providers that there's a lot of duplication of service and not enough communication between those. So maybe what this can be is advocacy for some centralized space where these services can communicate with one another, such as to avoid this duplication of service.
Whatever gets it done.
I would move to add a general line in support of the Office of Community Safety within the mayor's executive budget. That would be my motion.
I'll second that.
Without objection, I know initially there was, I'm just testing to see.
No, I can't, I
So
can't
should we-
speak on behalf
I mean-
of my board with that. That's like a.
Okay, so can someone please motion to put it to vote?
I move to vote that same motion.
Okay. Is everyone clear in terms of what we're voting on?
Yeah.
Okay. CB1,
Come back to me, please.
CB2,
Back
I'm
to me.
abstaining. We don't have a position on
Yeah,
it.
we don't know.
okay, CB3,
Abstain, we have no position.
CB4,
Abstain.
CB5,
Abstain.
CB6,
Abstain.
CB7,
Stay.
CB8, CB9,
Back, me please.
CB10,
Yes.
CB11,
Yes.
CB12.
Yes.
Okay, CB1,
I'm abstaining. You don't have a position.
okay, CB9,
Yes.
okay, the motion fails. Again, one for you all to put in your respective community board responses.
I will note that in the healthcare access and behavioral health section, we do have a line that talks about strengthening coordination between healthcare providers, outreach teams, and social service agencies. So it covers a bit of that, although obviously not full scope.
Okay.
I'd just like to say, if we're looking for borough-wide support, maybe some of the people who voted for this could give us your resolution so we could bring it up in our boards.
Yeah.
I guess I have one question, and I mean, I don't mean to be argumentative, I'm trying to be, so is everything in this document has been, that we've all voted yes to, been something that your boards have taken a position on so far?
Yeah, either in fact or in spirit.
What do you mean?
Or-
in theory?
Yeah, because
That, like, the exact numbers weren't exactly what we asked for, but we like generally were like supportive of the general fire. But that particular issue has never come up. It's.
Great, so we need to move on.
Yeah.
So moving on to community board support. I'll give you a moment to take a look at that.
Sorry, don't mean to chuckle, but love it.
Could I raise a point of clarification as we approach this section? Is this in any particular order? Because the affordable housing section reads as if that is the most important, which I think many can agree it is. But the rest of this document, are these sections in order of highest priority to lowest?
No. But we can restructure if you think there's an implicit read that something is of higher priority.
I mean, some of these things I would argue are of higher priority, but I think in the alternative, I know we had already moved on from the overview section, but maybe the overview section needs to say that this is in no particular order.
Sure, without objection, are folks okay with adding language that explicates that the ordering of these sections does not reflect the priorities of the board?
Okay,
great.
Thank you. Okay, the floor is open now for any points on community board support.
Actually, on that point, it might be helpful to add a clarifying sentence like overview indicating that, because I understand where that concern is coming from. Typically, when we're talking about a document with a list of needs and priorities, that might be the implication. So it might be helpful in the overview to saying, or maybe a footnote saying the order
Correct.
of issues may not be.
That's what we just discussed.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
sorry, thank you.
Thank you. Any points on community board support? Adam?
I guess, I don't know, increase funding for community boards to conduct outreach within their communities.
Okay, no objection to that, or without objection? I think that's one we probably all agree on.
So we're asking for.
Well, to get outreach to community, I think oftentimes we have a hard time letting our community know if we're having a public hearing or whatever. The ways to, like marketing, let's call it, for community boards. Yeah.
So can I suggest that when it says baselining sufficient operating funds and then it lists a few things,
You could
I will
add
add in to conduct outreach within respective communities as one of that list?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, just so we can have one person speaking at a time, want to make sure that we could hear everyone's comments. Adam, did you finish your point?
Yeah.
Okay. I think Marquise, you had something.
I wanted to be clear that we're asking for specific or more funding, like specific funding for more, not just the idea of, I think the way it came out is like more like. That would just be included in our normal budget. I'm saying like, there's no money for that. So there needs to be money like almost a pile of money created for it.
Without objection? Or, sorry,
I'm sorry, yeah.
Just to clarify how that would look in the sentence, then I'm happy to instead say maintain the space and resources needed to serve their communities. And also funding for so separate it from the rest of the list just to make it stand out.
Yes.
Pam, is it related to this?
Yes.
Okay, and then.
So, my understanding is that we already do get the cost of living increases for our teams, right? So that, there has been a pipeline of salary increases for the on-site teams that have come in the last couple of years. So that in particular is awesome. I do not want to take it out, but I'd want to, because it's already existing, and what is not existing is the funding that we need for sourcing places to host meetings, communications, and technology. In the paragraph and overview, that to me seems to be a bigger priority from at least our perspective of the needs to operate the board to go up, because the staff most oftentimes is very much accounted for, both district managers and others in the funding. So I would.
You want to switch the order?
Yes.
Sure. Without objection?
Without objection?
And I'm sorry, that's to delete that one?
No, so to clarify, I think, correct me if I'm wrong in understanding this, I think we want to create the stronger implicit association with the second paragraph as being more important. So we'll, sorry, that would be the third paragraph in this section. So we'll move the third paragraph up to being the second paragraph and then include the COLA in what would then be the third paragraph. Is that right?
I was saying to put the employee salaries as the last paragraph and the other two up.
Without,
Without objection? Valerie, I know you had a point on this.
Well, my point is the following. I don't think that this is strong enough. I mean, when you say community board support, maybe it should be community board funding. And I think to Marquise's point, I mean, basically, we are, start out with it, we are inadequately funded to do the job that we're supposed to do right now. And we're, talk about efficiency, community boards have to be the most efficient city agencies in the city, given what our budgets are and what we're asked to do. So I guess I'm advocating on behalf of all 59 boards. But this sentence in the second paragraph of over that period, the cost of living has risen by nearly 40%. The city's housing pipeline has accelerated dramatically. I'm not sure what that clause has to do with what we're talking about. And it's, the charter has been revised twice, adding new mandates and charter review timelines. It's just like a connection here, that because we have new mandates and tighter review timelines, it's even more imperative that we have resources and funding so that we can do our jobs in those shorter timelines that we're now going to be operating under.
Can I suggest that to emphasize that we can also, a lot of paragraph reordering, but maybe we could take the second paragraph and put it atop to clarify that that's how we want to open the issue, that the needs have grown and the funding has not grown to match that. And we can be more explicit about the housing pipeline accelerating and the charter revisions directly impacting what community boards have on their plate.
The needs have grown, but I think actually the needs have become more acute is the right language, because we've always been operating under deadlines for everything. This other request, this Office of Technology and Innovation, if that exists right now and we're supposed to be having access to that, I'm unaware of it.
So I can speak to that. Just before we get to that point, can I, without objection to that recommendation that was made, and also the what you put forward, Valerie, community board funding instead of community board support as the title. Is that without objection? Okay, so Office of Technology, that's OTI. And so as you see here, the paragraph reads to establish a dedicated person to support with community boards. So one of the things that we heard from some of your feedback was that, you know, when you reach out to OTI, they're the entity that, you know, would help with the emails and ensuring that, you know, everyone has access to the city emails and things of that nature, that it's been really difficult to get through to them. And so that's what this is kind of expressing in this paragraph.
But isn't that Michael's job? Isn't Michael Crevencio already the community board liaison? I know he is for all 59, but I'm pretty sure that's his position.
We're trying to get a work on that.
Okay.
Valerie?
Yeah, I thought that this was the issue, is that there was only one liaison for all 59 boards.
That
But
would
maybe
be,
it's a second?
So then in that case, that was a misunderstanding on our part, and we
maybe there's
should.
one for Manhattan or
yeah.
I don't know.
So
So I thought that was the issue.
I would suggest without objection that we would say we want more support through OTI for community boards and not specify the particular number, just to make sure we're not getting anything wrong in this case.
Yeah, and this thing about City of Yes compliance, we don't have any City of Yes compliance.
No.
Okay. Yeah, I think that was a reference back to there being more development in the pipeline, and more ULURPs in the pipeline, but I would move to strike that entirely without objection. That those few words. Okay.
Okay, and then just to go back, we are also removing the language dedicated liaison to more support under OTI without objection. Okay.
I had a question,
Yep, go ahead, Victor.
just the last line, one well-positioned employee, instead of all 59 boards, not a can. They cannot.
Yeah.
Right.
So we'll update that based off of the earlier conversation. Thank you for that flag.
I just wanted to, I don't know, I'm not like married to this idea, but Community Board 3 had consistently testified over the years during charter revision commissions for a request in the charter to adopt a full-time urban planner within community boards to independently cater their ULURP responsibilities. With volunteer members lacking urban planning expertise and city mandates requiring adherence to legal and procedural requirements. We thought it was vital for boards to have dedicated urban planner support, even though it's currently underfunded. So, I know that's like sort of
outside resources.
Yeah.
So without objection, I think the idea would be to specifically explicate having a dedicated urban planner support and the funding to accommodate that.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Great.
Excellent.
Sounds good. All right, moving on to the next section. Climate resiliency and environmental infrastructure.
I'd like to add something.
Yes, yeah, if you could please raise your hand.
I'd like to add something in here about environmental justice. And I say that very, very clearly because EDC recently, this is going to be in my report, said that the 5I Seaport Master Plan design changes was based on truly commercial and transportation and did not look at the greater environmental justice and versus the economic impacts that are needed. And that is a problem for growing residential neighborhoods with the city of yes, and the addition of more people, the dissection of the climate resiliency from the greater urban plan that's happening on development side is widening.
Thank you, Tammy. Without objection?
What are we saying?
We're saying that economic justice should be the priority, not economic, environmental justice should be a guiding principle in climate resiliency and environmental infrastructure. Because right now it's not. And I say that only from, I have four resiliency projects in the neighborhood and one was based on that.
Without objection to that language?
Actually, hopefully a friendly amendment, Tammy. If you were saying that that was in response to a recent EDC statement or comment, maybe if there's a.
We've actually said it all along for years that the problem that we have with most of the projects is that it wasn't looking at environmental justice. It was only looking at economic and climate resiliency.
Right, and I think you said that they said that they are not prioritizing economic.
That the priority in this.
Right, so maybe we can, I like that we're including helpful footnotes to kind of maybe justify and validate some of the things that we're saying.
I'll get you the words.
Okay.
From the meeting.
Great.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next section. Parks, open space and recreation. Again, a moment to review. Any points?
Wondering if there might be room for.
Sorry, just if we can raise our hands so I can acknowledge. Okay, CB4.
Sure, CB4. As part of the issues that we're listing, as part of the parks maintenance issue, I think public safety has also become a concern in our district because of the lack of maintenance. So if we could add that to the list of, maybe in the first paragraph or maybe in the last paragraph, that it would help support the safety in the first paragraph. Tam, you suggesting and I will be.
I second that need and request.
So did I hear correct? So lack of maintenance is what you mentioned?
Safety and security.
Oh, safety and security enforcement.
Right. I think it needs to focus on parks enforcement police. Because we have that need as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Without objection? So I think we would add a line that says that lack of maintenance and lack of, sorry, what was the specific?
Exactly. It's
Lack.
you have thinned out maintenance workforce here. But what you don't have in here is parks enforcement.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which includes quality of life, safety and security for park users.
So we'd be adding a line that talks about deferred or non-existent parks enforcement also having a direct impact on quality of life and public safety.
Right.
And the need for more.
Right, the ask would be for increased parks enforcement patrols.
Okay, without objection? Not hearing anything else on this item, we'll move to the next part of the resolution. Arts and cultural infrastructure. Not seeing any hands, can we agree this section without objection?
Wait, I'm sorry. I have.
Somebody?
You don't have one.
Oh, sorry, this is just a new copy.
Oh, no,
The old copy, sorry.
I have it. I want to understand the last paragraph a little bit more, because it almost sounds as if that we're advocating for more studio apartments to be developed, and I don't know if that is probably not something my board would. Be
Studio space, but we can make it more explicit that
studios, I see.
space instead of.
I'm thinking of like the old days where studio apartments and studios were the same thing. Okay,
But I think, yeah, if we
Understood.
can add like something to just clarify a bit more.
yeah, because otherwise I'm conflating residential and commercial in this paragraph. I think it needs to be specific.
We can be explicit about this being working space as
Yeah.
opposed to residential space, which may be a little bit
Yeah.
more controversial in this room. So should we add a word that makes that very, very clear without objection?
Yeah.
Great, thank you. All right, moving on to the next section, transportation safety and the public realm.
Oh, no.
That was a big sigh.
All for the support.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, if anyone has points, if you can raise your hand.
I want to second Valerie's ask and from CB8 about putting something in here about having enforcement not being part of transportation is creating new styles. No, say. They don't do enforcement. So the only thing the transportation says that they can do is engineer solutions. And and they don't. Registration of electrified bikes is not something the city does either. So mopeds are state registration. How does that? I'm confused, I think is where I'm going. Are we asking for the city to register every electric e-bike and license it?
No.
Well, that is how it reads.
Yeah, that's.
So I think there has been in law a distinction between mopeds and other types of bikes. You might be right that that's not appropriate for the city budget ask. If that's a state requirement, what we could frame it as is, we're hopeful that these registrations go through and that would create new mechanisms for city enforcement.
I'd have to vote against that. Our board explicitly voted against licensing electric bikes.
How do others?
We voted, we thought that the state, which already licenses. Should be the one.
So there are differing, I do want to move the conversation along, because we still have a bit to get through, including your reports. And so does someone want, it sounds like there's not consensus on this particular item.
As written, I think there's probably consensus, because as you said, mopeds are state, but we wouldn't want it to be revised to say that we want all electric bikes to be licensed, because our board has voted.
Okay, if someone has a motion for that revision, they can raise it, otherwise, you won't consider it.
Hey, can I just say something? I think this is pretty controversial in the second paragraph that says, we can avoid 205 deaths through daylighting, upgraded signals. Even the DOT has been, let's say, divided on the effectiveness of daylighting. And so I'm not even sure, and I don't even know what upgraded signals means. I know what it means in terms of subway system, but
Well, it's citing the DOT.
well, I know that it's citing it, but have you like really gotten in the weeds on these reports? Because they're very, there's a real issue in my board's mind between the idea of causality and correlation. And
Could I recommend that maybe instead of specifying these different initiatives or new programs, we could just say we can avoid through better street safety?
again, I'm not sure why this is a budget request. This seems more like a true policy advocacy. And I, even based on last night's vote about an open plans request to ask the DOT to look at street redesign, which we rejected. I just don't think I can sign on to this because I'm not seeing, unless you're saying increased enforcement of existing laws regarding, traffic safety. I don't see this more as like a policy thing. And I don't even understand the last paragraph. The city should consider the impact of large scale infrastructure construction on neighborhoods.
Sure. So to address the first point, I think we could reframe it more explicitly to be about improved street infrastructure, which feels more naturally like a budget inclusion, or we can move to strike this paragraph entirely if that's the consensus. Can I get a feel for
How others feel on this? Tammy? I can actually disagree with Valerie for first time in a long time. I think daylighting is critical, and in the point where we supported daylighting because it's somewhat the DOT supported having daylighting, but didn't actually support the move to let outdoor dining take over the daylighting spaces that were being allotted. So I think if we don't support daylighting, we're going to end up with, and I know it's a controversial comment to be making, but daylighting was about making it easier to cross the street with sight lines and view lines for pedestrians and cars. And if we don't include the daylighting, I think in whatever point we put, there's a problem because then we're going to have structures on the corners.
So there's no consensus. I do want to kind of keep us moving along, and if we can please keep our points succinct. So if I can, I'll take Sandy, I know you had your hand on this, and then if someone wants to motion to vote on this, then we can do that.
I suggest we vote on it because I think it's a very simple, we just state we want street redesign. But as stated, I think that covers a lot.
Okay, so is that a motion?
Yes, it's a motion.
Okay, is there a second?
So to clarify, this would be to, instead of specifying daylighting, et cetera, to talk about improved street designs and infrastructure, investments in improved street design and infrastructure, and not get into the policy weeds.
Second.
Okay. CB1?
I only wanted to take out the 205 deaths. So does that mean that I have to abstain because I wanted to keep, or say no, I wanted to keep daylighting? Like, I'm confused at what the motion is. It takes out everything. So the line reads, Vision Zero initiative is now more than a decade old. Like, what does the line read? I'm sorry, I just don't understand.
Perhaps it could read, it's more than a decade old, while 2025 saw a 19% decrease in fatalities. There is still much that can be improved through better street design and investment in street infrastructure.
I'm okay with that.
So that's what we're voting on, right?
Is that okay? Just to clarify the specific language?
Come back to me. I think I'm ready to vote. I'm abstaining.
Okay. CB2?
I'm gonna vote against this because we do have.
We're just doing a vote.
So it's a no. We support daylighting.
CB3?
Did Andrea step out? Okay, we'll come back.
CB4?
Yes.
CB5?
I think I have to vote now.
Okay, CB6?
Yes.
CB7,
No.
CB8,
I think I'm a no, but I'm not even sure.
back to you, CB9, no,
No, that's not what I was.
CB10,
Stay.
okay, CB11,
Staying.
CB12,
No.
okay, I need to calculate. Can I go back to CB8? Valerie?
Yes, that's a no. That's not what I asked for.
Okay, Andrea, we just went through about three. No, please, that's fine. Do you want to go ahead and explain the motion that's on the floor?
Sure, I believe the motion on the floor is to rewrite the second paragraph of the transportation section such that it says the Vision Zero initiative is now more than a decade old. While 2025 saw a 19% decrease in fatalities, there is still much to be done. I don't have the exact phrasing. In investing in improved street designs and infrastructure instead of specifying daylighting and upgraded signals.
No, we have a position on daylighting.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want
So
to
with
point out,
that-
this has nothing to do with your position on daylighting, because daylighting is a redesign of a street.
But it's diving.
We are removing it.
So, the motion fails, excuse me.
Okay.
So we're keeping it as is.
Yep.
No objections.
I just, it's inconsistent with the DOT's position on daylight.
I just asked,
Being
okay.
cited, so I think since it's being cited, that's your, right?
But I haven't read the report to
Right.
respond.
Okay.
But
And it seems-
Any other points on this? I just wanna, without objection, to keep this paragraph, the second paragraph. Okay, anything else on this section?
And questions. Can you tell me what this means, the public realm? Because I've heard various elected officials talk about pedestrians taking back the street. Pedestrians never had the street to begin with, so taking it back, I mean, are we saying that the street is, what does that mean, public realm?
I think that the public realm in this case does not specifically mean pedestrians. It's just all of the public space that is outside of private space. So that would include sidewalks, it includes streets, it includes public infrastructure. I don't know, it was not intended to mean pedestrian, but if it reads that way and you have a motion to change it because of that implicit reading, then I think we would hear it.
Sorry, just giving Valerie a moment.
I just think it's saying that like the public space has gotten more multi-use and we need to put more resources to like managing the multi-use.
Oh,
Tabby?
While Valerie's thinking of her motion, one of the things that's missing in here is it is public space and the public space is being given away to a particular industry at a very low rate. The secondary pilots that I've seen come from transportation for the public realm, public space includes commercial operators getting like Amazon getting. They have a 1-year pilot for 2 commercial spots and they're paying $2,000 for it. And the street value, if I was a small business owner parking 24 hours a day in front of the business, is $86,000 in our neighborhood for the same parking spot. So I think when we actually have to value our public space and really take more input from a community for what would be best suited in that, not just a restaurant is great here without the look of would a bioswale be better, more beneficial for the neighborhood in this area? You know, there's not a conversation on what's actually best in the public realm on that location. It's only just a commercialization of the public space at the lowest rates possible in a budget crisis.
So what I would say specifically for this paragraph is that right now it doesn't make any, it doesn't have an opinion necessarily on the public realm. It is stating the fact that as it has become more dynamic, that that requires stronger coordination between infrastructure investments and enforcement capacity. So the idea being that this is a trend that we are seeing, and therefore it demands more resources to make sure that all of these different uses of the public realm are coordinating appropriately, and that there are city investments to maintaining them and avoiding safety issues that arise because of this new dynamism.
Thank you, Esther. Valerie,
Yeah,
and then I think.
Yeah, I think it's elevated beyond like parking versus bikes. I think it's really about how do we allocate this scarce public space, right? I think that's what that paragraph is addressing. I support it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Seeing no other hands, we're going to move on to the next section. Sanitation and neighborhood cleanliness. Valerie?
I appreciate the composting program, but in terms of sanitation and neighborhood cleanliness, this section doesn't address the number one problem in Manhattan, which is rats. So I don't know. I mean, containerization of residential and commercial waste has improved on some blocks, that is true, but we need more of a commitment to overall, I'll use the term public realm cleanliness.
Okay. Without objection to add.
So just to be clear, would you want a separate section on response to the crisis of rats in our streets, which I agree should be mentioned, or do you want that to be included in the containerization section, drawing a direct?
Beyond containerization.
I think it's a separate thing because rats exist in parks
Okay.
and construction sites and food carts.
Without objection? Is that addition? I don't think any of us would object to that.
I hope not.
Right. So Anthony, I know you just stepped out, just to catch you up really quickly. Valerie made an amendment or suggested an amendment to include a separate paragraph to focus on the rat population and that issue. So there were no objections. I assume you don't have any either. Great.
And
Thank
if
you.
I may, the other point I think we should address.
The
which is-
public realm.
I know everyone's hanging on my dog poop. Okay, which has been, cited by the borough president as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Without objection? Okay, moving to the next section, older adults and age-friendly communities. So, older adult and age-friendly communities.
Is there the word not here?
Yes. In the first paragraph.
There it is. For me, I would want to very specifically call out that every single community board should have something for seniors in it. It shouldn't be like everything up in 11 and there's nothing down in 1. Like every single community board should have an area in it, should have places where seniors can live. Just
Will ensure the more equitable distribution of resources for seniors through the different community boards.
And that there's access and existing in every. With housing.
Without objection?
Explicitly senior housing? Is that part of the suggestion?
Oh, yeah, because otherwise you can't age in place.
Yeah.
In the communities, absolutely.
Without objection to that part as well?
Not seeing other hands, moving on to libraries and cultural infrastructure.
Can I just go back for a moment?
Oh, go ahead.
On the SPRE and DRE enrollment, some language about publicizing it more. There's still a lot of seniors that have no idea about that, or something. That would be helpful.
To kind of make this publicized.
Yeah, I think that's what was intended by they must make proactive targeted outreach to enroll every eligible senior. But maybe we can let's add the word public to make sure it's not only targeted, but public information about it.
Assuming that's without objection. Libraries and cultural infrastructure.
By the way, I'm realizing that we had included arts and cultural infrastructure. We added an entire section, which is now duplicative of one of these paragraphs. So we will take out that paragraph such that it's not duplicated. Is that without objection? Is that okay? This would be the second and third paragraph are now duplicative. So we will most likely just combine those sections if that's okay with everyone.
So in other words, you would take the first paragraph and put it under arts and cultural so that.
Yeah, I think we'll say arts, libraries, and cultural infrastructure and combine those two. Is that all right?
Yes.
Okay.
See,
Just one thing to go back, I mean, we had a meeting yesterday with the police officers who do Manhattan North. With respect to older adults, is it possible to include something in terms of the services to public safety concerns about the amount of scamming that's being focused at older adults, and just, point that out as an issue that should be addressed specifically?
So without objection, the suggestion is to add a section in older adults that specifically calls for the city to better publicize and fund resources to protect older adults from the proliferation of scams.
Without objection?
Educated in there.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, they seem to be targeted more.
great. So moving on to the next section, nonprofit funding and contracting. Not seeing any hands.
I have a question.
Sure.
Thank you. Saying the administration has to make timely contract registration and payments. Is the problem in itself that has forced the closure of nonprofits from, for example, during COVID and coming out of COVID? And I understand that there's what is considered timely. On an emergency order, timely was thrown out because there was none of it. And yet the nonprofits still continue to operate. So the problem that I saw during that time period was yes, they did not get money. And that was both federally and locally. So I think it's a different evaluation that you have to take a look at. Is this during an emergency executive order from the city, which is what we're talking about, city funding? Are you stopping city funding for an organization that's providing services for children for after school or for funding? Like, there's no contextuality, I think, is where I'm trying to get to.
Sure. So I think the idea here is that there was a difference in the level of dysfunction and the system for emergency nonprofit services when there was a high influx of the need for those services as opposed to the more typical stream of services. What I'll say is we've heard unilaterally that even during the more typical stream of services, nonprofits have a very difficult time receiving their funding and going through the city contract process in a timely manner, if at all. And it's often very restrictive of what they can use that money for, hence the inclusion. But maybe we can add something specific to during crises needing more to buoy that effort.
I would say it's a problem right now.
Yeah.
And there's no crisis. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if Tammy, you're looking for a timeline to be 3 months, 4 months, you're looking for a real timeline, is that what you?
I think if you don't put anything in here, time it could be a year.
It is here.
Yeah, I think that's the problem. It's more timely, I mean, you're talking about people making payroll, right?
So do we want to put in a month? Is that?
Yeah. I don't know if we can.
Can we, I don't know that we know that we have the expertise to determine what that time should be, but maybe we can add, we could add something to that sentence that says must make timely contract registration and payment a measurable operational priority, including reducing the amount of time it takes. So we want to say that there needs to be a reduction. We're not sure exactly what that reduction would look like.
Perfect.
Yeah. Without objection?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I just ask a question? The last sentence, second to last sentence, in the cases of trusted nonprofit partners with a history of good work and finances, the city should provide a portion of their contracted refund on a pre-audit basis. I mean, I think maybe Sandy and I have a lot of familiarity with this in terms of some of the nonprofits that we're involved with. I mean, the city should be paying on a regular basis, just like every other customer has to pay their vendors. And what is the result of this is that not-for-profits are under extreme pressure, and some of them are facing bankruptcy because credit lines they have to get. I mean, they're basically carrying this, they're doing the work that the city is supposed to be doing in terms of providing social services, and they're carrying the economic burden. And so I appreciate this paragraph greatly from a different point of view, not being the community board, but I'm not sure we should just say in the case of trusted nonprofit partners, but the city should.
You're right. So I think what you're saying is that it's like an overqualification for what we want the city to do.
Right. The city should be paying its bills time.
So, without objection, we can make that line a little more simply. The city needs to make sure that those who have not been paid.
Just say should be paying, services rendered. I mean, everybody, right? The fact that we can say resolutely that it takes a year to get paid.
Yeah.
I mean,
I would move to remove this line without objection. It seems to be muddying the rest of the paragraph.
I would agree.
Without objection.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you. Moving on to the next section, small business vitality. Oh, yeah, that's okay. Okay, if I can take it down first and then Valerie.
I'm not great at wording these things, but I'll give you the idea. Some kind of increased funding for city agencies, communications and technological support for small businesses. A lot of these websites are super outdated. I'm a small business owner and every year applying for the same permits is like a re-education and even like, outreach from the Department of Health for restaurant inspections. They're doing like an email notification now, but the inspectors still show up to these places without people receiving their notifications. And I just think it's hurting. It's one more hurdle for small businesses to have to deal with. I think the city, they want to give permits and take money. They should make it easier for people to pay them. So.
I would like to highlight and echo the point about outreach to the small businesses. Oftentimes, these business owners are not able to go to public hearings or meetings taking place during prime business hours. So I think that piece is very important.
So, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Just for the crowd, I think the recommendation would be that we add a line specifically saying there needs to be more direct outreach and education for small business owners and more technical fluidity in the programs that are offered to them. Without objection?
Great, Valerie.
I think this is a perfect section to highlight the borough president's renewed interest in what we've been advocating for, which is the elimination of the commercial rent tax. That's disproportionately affects small businesses in our district, I would think in CB6 and everybody else south of 96th Street.
So for those who don't know, the proposal would be, and this is state legislation right now, which is why we didn't include it, but maybe there's a way to still include it in this section. The proposal would be for the commercial rent tax to modify it such that there is an exemption for small businesses that have rent between, I believe, 500,000 and $1 million, that are John, and you can correct me, but that are retail and food service. So that would be not the full, not removing the CRT entirely, but just creating an exemption for this heavily impacted group of small businesses.
Okay, I thought the proposal was the elimination. I didn't hear that it was so tailored.
So the elimination would lead to a loss of, I believe, around $1 billion in city revenue, which is why it's difficult to advocate for in this present budget cycle. But if there's a motion to consider that here, or we can take it up as a separate policy conversation.
I think it would be great to add it here. I mean, maybe we don't say completely eliminate, but to review, and that could lead to elimination.
Okay, anything's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Is there consensus on that bit?
Yes.
To review rather than eliminate?
Yes.
Sure. Yeah, and I'll note just for the room that the steps that have been taken so far is we reached out to specifically ask for that review so that we understand what the impact of the CRT is on these businesses. What I was referring to is the state legislation that presently exists to modify the CRT. We want to get more information about the impact of the CRT, and then, you know, that can lead to all sorts of things, perhaps in future years also. What was just shared. But so, okay, just to clarify here, the suggestion is that we include reference to the city reviewing the commercial rent tax to understand its impact on Manhattan businesses.
Okay.
Is,
Thank you. Yep.
is this the place to put what Adem was talking about? For small business support in any way, shape, or manner, to ensure that, and I'm sorry, I'm going down the road again, that counterfeit goods that mimic what's inside the store are not sold immediately outside the store, and how can SBS work with small businesses to help them? I'm not sure, because again, it's about viability and about help from the city. Gotta give profiles.
Yeah, so the suggestion is to include with reference to SBS, something that specifically says they should offer support to small businesses that are suffering because of the sale of counterfeit goods right in front of their stores. Is that without objection?
Why can't that one just include anything? Because now you're not looking to penalize necessarily the vendors, but you're still supporting any impact that somebody's even selling a similar product would have to you in your store.
That's the fruit vendors outside.
Well, it is, but well, I guess that's a neighborhood to neighborhood
That's
situation.
why I didn't.
But I'll leave that out
Yes,
then.
that's-
Yeah,
that's
I get it.
different.
Your situation's different than ours.
Yeah,
Yep, okay, sorry.
I'm just trying to get something in there that maybe.
I support that.
So are we clear on what that addition is?
So to clarify again, this is asking for SBS to provide the resources and support for small businesses who may be suffering from the sale of counterfeit goods that mimic their own products right outside of their stores. That would be the addition. Is that without objection?
Okay, great.
I have one more thing, if you don't mind. I don't know if this is done in any way, but you know, a lot of times construction being done by the city outside of businesses severely hampers their businesses. And the city will just leave that work like that. They'll be blocking the front door. Is there any way for the businesses that are impacted directly by construction outside their businesses, at least for a certain period of time, then to have some kind of, I don't know, financial assistance or something, some kind of support relating to that?
Sorry, I'm so sorry, could you say that
Like,
again?
you know, if a construction job is, a city and construction job is impacting a small business directly adjacent to it, taking parking up, blocking visibility, hindering access, is there any way to kind of support that small business in that period along those lines?
You know what, I'm thinking maybe for all of this, we should have a section at the end that just refers to all of these resources that exist for small businesses and say that we hope these resources should be financed so that they can also provide support for what we already said about those suffering from counterfeit goods and also those suffering from the disturbance of construction outside of their businesses.
Without objection? Okay. And then moving on to our last section, education and youth development.
On here, I think there's, I think you have, there's reference to like upgrades to built-in systems and, you know, upgrades for smart boards and laptops. I think we need to specifically say that New York City needs to invest in preparing for remote learning. Whether that be if there's another pandemic and things like that nature. When we have these snow days, weather inclement, students don't have devices mostly. And so I think we need to reinvest in preparing for remote learning. And that can be general, or it can be as specific to say that we also need to invest in technology and Wi-Fi outside of not just the school buildings, but in our community so that students have access.
Without objection? Okay.
So based on some of the public comments and then the position that my board took in January, I think there should be reference to AI and funding for clear guidelines around the use of AI in our schools.
Okay. Without objection?
Sure.
Another say that was just generally listing that we should have education and or funding to fund anti-bullying, cyberbullying, bullying in schools, or just in general amongst young people. It's very high. It's a big deal, and I think it's something that the city should, like, we should have a position on. The other thing was youth I think it's mentioned under public safety. We talk about youth unemployment. But I think I don't necessarily see that here, or something that says even going as far as to suggest maybe funding year-long opportunities for young people to have employment outside of, you know, and New York City has the summer youth program, but I would say year-long youth employment programs.
Without objection? Great. Any other points or comments on this section?
Yep. Can we put something in here that public education should also include a commitment to physical education and music and art education?
Without objection?
Do we need to put something in here due to the struggle with the smaller class sizes and budget, which is what we know has been widely reported as part of the problem with the budget deficit, is that the former controller's office did not plan appropriately for it. So the question is, do we, beyond the capital program and just mentioning classroom reconfigurations, it's actually staffing and classroom, because with smaller class sizes, you need more teachers and aides. Even if you're having teachers move from classroom to classroom to classroom, it's the teachers, it's the aides, and it's the physical support systems that you need for the smaller class size.
Yeah,
Yep,
so I think we'll just, the suggestion there would be in this part that references the work to compliance with the class size mandate to not just talk about classroom reconfiguration, but also about the staffing needs that accompany it.
Yes.
Okay, and I will add, I think this section, and my apologies, is missing a bit on special education. So I would say that we should also include something explicit about public schools needing better funding to meet the mandated requirements that they have to provide all students with their special educational needs, including IEPs, et cetera.
And I think that needs to say, with consistency and connection from pre-K to 12. Because if I have an IEP and I'm in a K-5 school, you have to reinvent the wheel when you get to 6 to 8 and then reinvent it again 9 to 12. Which is, there shouldn't be a reinvention of the wheel, it should be a continuation and just are you still here or are you out?
Any without objection?
Wordsmith.
Yes, Esther is very good at that.
Yeah, really.
Valerie?
Well, I don't want to jump over the conclusion, but just as a matter of presentation, does everybody's specific letters get attached to this with an additional attached for your reference or the individual request from the individual boards?
So the way it's been done in the past is that when we submit this full borough board one, we also include all of the submissions that have come through from the community boards. I haven't seen it as like an attachment to this board, instead just a collection of documents that are shared all together. But maybe we can look into if it would be appropriate to include them as, I don't know if exhibits, but as
annex, I'm just
an
wanting
annex.
to reference in the overview. One of the reasons I'm saying that is because we got a request from the mayor's office for the contact information for both me and my DM. And as of yesterday, we have no contact information with anybody in the mayor's office with even an email address to where we can send our resolution.
Oh, okay.
Well, we've been having to send them by regular mail.
I can follow up on that. That would probably be the Office of Mass Engagement, so I'm following up with that.
I thought they said the district managers all met with them. My
They
district
met with
manager.
some of them,
Oh, some.
but I don't want us to kind of lose the. thread.
So just to clarify for this, then I think what we should continue the practice as already is, which is that when we send this email, we'll also include in the email all of your responses. I don't know that we should addend it to this particular document, because that may imply that the board as a whole endorses each of the individual responses.
Yeah.
And so just include it informationally as another route for it to get to.
Okay, all right.
If that sounds right.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so on that, there are a few boards that have not shared that with me, so please, if you haven't, please do. So that we can make sure that we have that. Can we just move then to the conclusion really quickly?
I'm sorry, just before we do, I know it could be a very district specific issue, but the clarification of public schools incorporating charter schools, I don't know if that's something other boards have considered. Our board has been considering it for quite some time because Upper Manhattan has many charter schools and they are not great community partners and they bring a lot of issues. So I guess my recommendation would be saying something to the effect of traditional public schools where appropriate. Is there any objection to that?
I'd support.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure where that gets us.
So I think what the idea is, and correct me if I'm wrong, that when we reference public schools, we should be explicit that we are talking about traditional public schools as opposed to charter schools, which are sometimes grouped into that term.
Sure. Okay.
No objection.
Without objection, great, thank you for that.
Thank you.
And then conclusion?
Under education and youth development, I apologize, it just popped into my head, we talked about before. There is a need for the older public schools for security. Not every school has cameras, not every school has security. There is not enough funding for crossing guards, nor oftentimes enough school agents.
Yeah. Safety agents.
Safety agents, And so the city should be able to include that with education and youth development as a
Yeah.
critical part of updating the infrastructure of the schools as well as the manpower.
So better funding for stronger security infrastructure, including crossing guards for.
And safety. And school safety.
Safety.
And you have to upgrade, there are many public schools that were built without security cameras.
So school safety personnel, general security infrastructure, crossing guards and cameras.
And yeah.
Okay, without objection? Okay, conclusion?
Sorry about that. The caffeine's finally kicking in.
Okay, without objection?
Can I just quickly, you can reject it as quickly as I say it, but when we're talking about transportation in the public realm and efficiencies, is it possible that we can ask for a review of what the scope of work is for our so-called traffic enforcement force? Because that force seems to have not kept up with the different types of transportation modalities and seems to be only stuck in giving parking tickets instead of looking at e-bike enforcement and whatever. So they seem to be stuck in the 18th century concept of what traffic enforcement is about.
So for that, there's a paragraph there that says, due to the new and constantly evolving dynamic public realm, there's a need for better coordination and infrastructure to meet those new needs. I think what the suggestion would be then is to explicitly say, including a review of the traffic enforcement force, which has not evolved to meet these needs.
I would appreciate that if there's no objection.
Without objection?
All right, thank you.
Sorry.
We've closed with the other sections, last point.
Okay, it's all, I was battling because I wasn't sure if it fall under climate resiliency and environmental infrastructure. I know, I kept Googling, we've had recent outbreaks in regards to Legionella.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe to mention because a lot of that has been tied when I've been learning about the water systems and other things of that nature. If something could perhaps be referenced, because I think that certainly impacts communities and it's impacting the Manhattan in general.
Yeah, let's include in climate resilience, or would that be better included under health? Perhaps?
So I was trying to see what the connections, it did reference there were heavy connections to systems and water structures and other things. It also in regards to heating, it said, so it was linked to climate. So I mean, but it could be both, I'm sure.
So without objection to adding some section that is explicit about the recent outbreaks and making sure that we have protections in place so that we're not only responsive when those outbreaks occur, but are preparing for them proactively.
Great, thank you. I have not heard any comments on the conclusion section. Great, so with that.
My one comment is thank you.
Yes.
This is a breath of difficult for you, but fresh air for, I think, the 12 of us.
Thank you, and a big thank you to Esther and the policy team for putting this all together, for you all to review.
Well, for the collegial feedback, and hopefully we'll get you a draft that reflects everything discussed here, and we'll have you all see it before it gets sent out.
Exactly, great. Do I need to call a formal vote? Probably, yes. Great, so with that, can I get a motion on the floor to adopt the Manhattan Borough Board fiscal year 27 preliminary budget response with the additions as discussed?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, CB1.
Yes.
CB2.
Yes.
CB3.
Yes.
CB4. You were there.
It's not here yet.
CB4.
Yes.
CB5 is not present. CB6.
Yes.
CB7.
Yes.
CB8.
Yes.
CB9.
Yes.
CB10.
Yes.
CB11.
Yes.
CB12.
Yes.
It is adopted.
All
Thank
right.
you. Well, thank you, everyone. Really appreciate that. And again, in terms of next steps, we're going to collate all of that feedback. We'll ensure that you have the draft to ensure that all of those points were properly reflected in the new draft. And yes, and submit it. And again, if you haven't submitted your CB specific response, please do so that we can include that.
I will note there were a couple things that folks had asked for a little bit of time to come up with specific words. If you could try to get those to us by end of day so that we can include in.
Yeah, could you remind us?
Let me
Use a placeholder on homeless supportive service.
Right, yeah.
That one spot.
Yeah.
Great. So with that, we're now going to move to reports from our New York City Council members. I did see Councilmember Brewer online earlier. Dawn, can I check if we have any council members online?
I did check. We don't have any council members online.
Okay, thank you, Dawn. I do want to share that we did have, as you know, there was a representative here from a Councilmember Encarnacion's office. Councilmember Gail Brewer was online. And a couple other council members were unable to join us, but they sent their regards. With that, I would like to then move us to a presentation from the Independent Budget Office. A really big thank you to our colleagues from IBO for joining us today. And so Dawn, if we can pull up that slide for them.
Could we share the screen from here or no? Okay.
So yeah, so Dawn will say next. Do you want me to move? Let me move. Or do you want to sit here?
It
Or?
doesn't matter, we can just stand right here.
Okay.
Here, I mean, we just heard you guys debate.
Yes, just one second.
So we don't want to
Sorry,
believe
one
it.
No. Dawn, just if we can make it, yeah, full screen.
Yes, that was sad.
Yeah, if you could exit out where it says all tools. And we'll make sure that everyone also gets a copy of this. Okay, if that's, okay, over to you.
You can go to the next slide, please. So, hi guys.
Hey.
My name is Cindray. I'm a community engagement specialist at the Independent Budget Office. This is my colleague John, who's a budget and policy analyst. So you guys were just talking about the budget. You seem really well versed in it. I don't think we need to go through this whole presentation. So really, we'll just introduce IBO. Are you guys familiar with IBO?
Yeah.
Everyone is. Okay, great. We've done our jobs. We have been going around to your boards more. So yeah, I don't know, but we can give you a preview basically of what we're going to be offering. We're going to have another training with the VP's office, so hopefully you can send your community members who are trying to join your boards or people who applied to be board members. I think those are our target audience. So yeah, let's move on to the next slide. Next slide, please. That's just the full agenda. You can see what that looks like. Who is IBO? We are a nonpartisan city agency, independent in the sense that we're not under the jurisdiction of elected officials. There are also a few other mechanisms that keep us independent. So our function is to provide nonpartisan insights into budget and policy. So really just, we analyze the mayor's budget reports. We publish policy reports year round. Today, we're publishing a report on emergency medical services response times and how they are getting worse. And then we also provide testimony at city council. And of course, deliver presentations like this one. So I think at this point, just really want to emphasize that we are a resource for you guys. Like you were saying just now, you want a review of commercial rental tax on small businesses. We can probably do that for you. We have very robust data sets, especially in education. So you can just email us and we'll be happy to link you up with our analysts who can tell you whether that's visible in the budget or not. For example, John actually tomorrow is speaking with Community Board 3 in Brooklyn to talk about transport equity. Do you want to say a little? Oh, Manhattan. Oh, sorry.
So yes, as Sarah was mentioning, tomorrow we have a meeting with Community Board 3 in Manhattan. They're interested in transportation equity. So if you have any sort of questions on equity, on funding, is my council or community district being funded, equally to other Manhattan community districts? Who are more than happy to answer those questions. We have that data.
Yeah, and also on your question about COLA regarding community boards,
I asked one of our analysts and he's pulling the numbers like of the history of the spending over the years on CB staff. But we don't actually have like, this year they did it, this year they did it, but we don't have that information. Yeah, so definitely just always, our inboxes are open. Next slide, please. Right, we can just keep going and I guess until I say stop. Next slide, please. Yeah, you know the importance of the budget, balancing it, revenues, expenditures, key budget actors. You can also just read it in your own time, but I guess it's more for like an introduction to the budget. So next slide, please. Yeah, so I guess just to situate us where we are right now as a refresher, I suppose. You know, our fiscal year began last year. You guys kind of kick off the process by submitting your need statements and before agencies submit their estimates. And then theoretically the federal budget comes out. Not going to go into that. First quarter plan in November. And our most recent publication from the mayor was the preliminary budget. Very exciting. First time this administration has shown what they're prioritizing. And our analysis of that budget is coming out next week. So we'll tell you more about what we're seeing. I guess like the one-liner we've been seeing, which we also said in our testimony last week. We're glad that they are reflecting expenditures a little more accurately than previous administrations, such as in overtime for uniform overtime spending. But there's still more work to be done. You know, of course, there's now that they're saying that there's more expenditures, where are they going to find that revenue? Our predictions for the gap, so to speak, is not exactly the same as the numbers that people have been throwing around. But we'll talk about that more next week when the paper actually comes out. So that's where we are now. Borough boards are submitting their budget priorities. You guys just voted on that. Then comes the state enacted budget, theoretically April 1st, but often it's late. So right now those negotiations are going on in Albany. Executive budget and then adopt a budget. And then we do it all over again. Next slide, please. Yeah, expense, capital. And at this point, we kind of just go into the difference between those two. I think a lot of times community members get confused about what goes where. So I'm gonna pass this to John to kind of walk us through how we clarify that for people.
Yeah, I'm gonna start talking a little bit about the expense budget. For context, I used to work with Councilmember Julie Menon for 2 years, so I know what is important to people in Manhattan. So I just want to touch upon a couple of things that are sort of relevant here for community boards and for just community members in general. So we can skip 2 slides. So there'll be
The next slide, then the next one.
the next one. The main thing here is my colleague mentioned is that the New York City budget has to be balanced. This is something that came out from the fiscal crisis. By law, it has to be balanced. What that means is that revenues have to match expenditures. Now, in practice, that usually plays out, but when we're looking at fiscal crisis, such as the one that we're looking into now, what that means is that in the current fiscal year in which we are, which is fiscal year 2026, budget is balanced. The way that the administration does that depends. It can look at getting into the rainy day funds. It can look at reducing expenses, raising revenues. But as you can see here from OMB's November plan, we do have significant gaps in the coming years when it comes to our revenues versus expenditures. Where we come in here at IBO is that we do our own analysis of the city's revenues and expenditures. We essentially look at the same numbers, but we use different assumptions. We look at things that are historically underfunded by using data that we have access to, and then we do our own analysis of that gap. So as you can see here, for fiscal year 2026, OMB has no gap. However, IBO has identified a gap of $377,000.
These are millions.
Oh, millions.
That's good.
So it's just a sort of difference in how we see the same numbers. This doesn't mean that OMB is right or that IBO is right. It just means that we're looking at it with different assumptions. I will say, as my colleague mentioned, OMB this fiscal year has done a really good job of looking at things that we know are critically underfunded and funding them correctly. something like schools, DOE, and other parts of the city budget. However, there's still some gaps, there's still some issues with how we budget. This is something that comes up every single fiscal year. But again, the main thing that I want to point out here is that OMB is doing a little bit better, and then there's still areas to improve.
So,
Yeah.
yes, can you just give a relationship, like, okay, they're saying zero, you're saying 377 million. But what percentage difference is that from actual versus budgeted? Like, is that a 10% off the whole budget? Like, what's the size of the budget?
So
are we looking at a significant number, or is this like a rounding error?
So in the context of the whole budget is around 120 or 100.
Yeah, this is from the November plan. We actually have the prelim numbers now, so we'll update that for you guys. But yeah.
Current preliminary budget is $122 billion. So this number is, as you mentioned, it's rounding error.
Negligible.
But it is something that by
Then what's the crisis?
In the future fiscal
in the
years.
future fiscal year. So the sort of main concern is that as we go on in the future fiscal years, there is a significant gap that the city is not funding right now, which means that in the sort of next financial plans that are coming for this fiscal year, the city has to find a way to bridge this gap. By law, they have to. Whether it's raising revenues in Albany or reducing expenses or tapping into the rainy day fund, that is a question for the administration, but they have to. It's required by law. If not, then we're.
And in our last plan, we were also talking about how the surplus is shrinking. So there's less of a cushioning for paying for the future years. So like this year, we had money from last year that we paid this year's budget. But next year's budget, we have less money for that. And that's why they're going into the rainy day fund. But that's not exactly a sustainable solution. So there's been a lot of talk about new revenue streams. Yeah.
There's also some things that are we're going to be talking a little bit further ahead. But there's things such as legal mandates the city has to pay for by law. So as we go through different fiscal years, it may be the case that expenses just grow in those legal mandates. Something, for example, is the right to shelter. If we have another crisis, as we had with the sort of migrant crisis a couple of years ago, then revenue expenses will rise significantly, and you know that gap might open up a little bit more as well.
Yeah.
So when we say that the city is required to meet or bridge that gap, what are the repercussions on the city for failing to do so? Like, what happens?
That is a good question. And I think the city hasn't found itself in a position historically where that happens. We've been really close, but as you're probably aware, the city does have a couple of tools in their belt to meet that requirement. If it comes to push to shove and we don't meet that gap, I'm really not prepared to tell you what might happen, but it's not going to be good. It's going to be sort of figuring out how to get that money as soon as possible in a way that might be hurtful for many folks.
Yeah, the state might swoop in and do something, austerity measures. I don't know.
So like, for example, some of the mandated funding things, so like right to shelter, the class size mandate, things like that. Sometimes the city will just allocate not enough funding to those mandated things. And so they'll technically have a balanced budget, but that's because they have not procured enough funding to meet those obligations. And then they might face suit if they are not complying with the law. So that has some precedent.
Yeah, I mean, like, again, all these numbers are plans. These are not actual spending. So they can fill that gap in the ledgers, like on the books when they're like planning for it. They can say, oh, actually, we think we're gonna make like 200 million more in corporate taxes, but we don't know for sure. Yeah, so that's why in that sense, the budget would always be balanced.
Interesting. Okay.
And we can go to the next slide and we'll come back for questions at the end as well.
Yeah.
If you're thinking about in terms of revenue, where New York City gets its money, it's mostly taxes where the city gets most of its money. Property taxes sort of the main one, and then personal income taxes. We do get a significant part of our money from state and federal grants, and then the rest comes from other. This is sort of fines, licensing fees and such. But as you can see here, the sort of main bulk of the revenue comes from taxes, which is really important as we're having conversations about raising property tax. For the next slide, one thing that I also want to talk about a little bit is about foregone revenue. So one thing that the city does as a sort of economic development tool is that we provide exceptions and deductions and tax credits to a lot of economic development projects. So something like MSG, the Madison Square Garden. Madison Square Garden doesn't pay property tax. They haven't done that since 1982.
Exemption in perpetuity.
In perpetuity, the sort of
Yeah, that's not right.
the sort of theory here is that MSG is creating a lot of jobs and creating a lot of economic value to the city. And so in order to keep them here, in order to sort of keep them happy, we want to make sure that we provide an incentive to them. There's been a lot of debate over whether that's an efficient use of our tax powers and such. But one thing that we did was that we looked at how much tax value we could get from something like MSG, remove that tax deduction, and the sort of estimated value in taxes would be 42 million. So when we look at the budget, this is not classified as a expense to the city. It's just foregone revenue. It's just revenue that we're not collecting, revenue that is sitting there somewhere in somebody's balance book.
Does Barclays pay taxes?
I believe they have a tax. I'm not sure if it's a tax exemption, but they probably have a tax deduction, which means that they pay less.
Yeah.
But they pay something.
Yeah, we have a paper called on pilots, payments in lieu of taxes.
Yeah.
Which I'm not sure we looked at Barclays specifically. Actually, maybe we did.
It'd be great to just understand the comparison, because I don't think anybody in any place other than the owners of MSG think that, being tax exempt is one thing.
They
but on
are.
the other- They are,
Yeah,
but I mean, on the other hand.
Barclays.
yep,
Tax exempt.
yep.
Yeah. This is a tool that the city uses a lot. When we were talking about the Amazon 2 headquarters conversation a couple of years ago, this was something that was talked about a lot. Whether or not it's an efficient use of our tax powers, it's debatable. We've looked into a couple of examples. In this case, we looked at MSG. We did a paper on pilots, which is a sort of alternative form of paying a fee rather than a tax. But this is just something to consider as we could talk about,
revenue streams.
If we need more revenue, these are some places to look. Certainly controversial, but
Is the assessed value, you're just talking about the property that MSG is on? When you say assessed value, that would be the property taxes, 42 million?
that would be the sort of estimated tax value that if you took everything that's under MSG that's exempt from the property tax, that would be sort of what we would be able to collect.
And what about if they were paying a commercial rent tax? Are they exempt from that?
I believe they might not, but this is specifically looking at property tax, which is what we have a lot of data accessible on.
But for what it's worth, the state proposal would not include MSG. It would not exempt MSG from the commercial rent tax.
They probably, I don't know, yeah, they own stuff. Anyway, should we move on to the next slide?
Yeah, next slide, please. And then when New York City spending its money, I mean, it's not a surprise that New York City spends most of its money, tax money on education. Education in New York City is a lot more than just instruction. We're talking about transportation, meals, and services. The next big area that we spend a lot of money on is health and social services, and then pensions, fringe, and claims is sort of the third one. I always like to show this because a lot of people think we spend a lot of money in DNYPD. We do, it's a significant part of our budget. But when you look at the sort of overall complexity of the city budget, it's not as much relatively to the rest of it. I will say I did a really interesting analysis on the New York City budget. Specifically, if you broke the New York City budget down into $100, where each dollar would go. So I suggest you take a look at the link that's linked here. It'll take you to a way better breakdown of this, and it has a lot of information for you that's really accessible by agency and by category as well. The next slide, I'm sure you're all aware, but there's a couple of things that are included in our budget documents. Things that count as an expenditure, salaries and benefits, we call this personal services. This is everything that has to do with salaries, pension benefits, fringe benefits, health insurance. Then we have operations and maintenance. This is everything that has to do with keeping services running, fixing things and contractors. The way I'd like to see this is sort of people and stuff. So your salaries are gonna be people and your stuff are gonna be operations and maintenance.
Staff and stuff.
Yes, staff and stuff. And then the other part of it is debt service, which is repaying interest and principals on bonds that the city has borrowed. This is mostly for the capital budget work that we do. The next slide, I just want to talk a little bit about legal mandates, which is what I mentioned earlier. There are certain parts of city spending that are required by law, which means that the city can't just like throw its hands up and not fund. There are cases in which they can fund less, but they have to cover certain benefits and services to New Yorkers. The big one that we talk a lot about is right to shelter, where New York City is required to provide shelter to families and individuals. But also one of the more recent ones that a lot of people are talking about is class sizes, which is like New York City has to reduce the amount of students per classroom. This comes with a lot of challenges. In some cases, you have to build new schools, have to get new teachers, new classrooms, and that can be a real burden on the New York City budget overall. And then quickly, for the next slide, I just want to move into capital budget. This might be something that you guys are a lot more familiar with. So if we look at the next slide, to classify as a capital project, you just have to be expensive and last a long time. Think about things that are physical. So this is parks, public restrooms, bridges, everything that's sort of structural is an easy way to see this. And I think this is something that community boards have a lot of input on. And so we just wanted to talk a little bit about it. So if you go to the next slide, the current preliminary 5-year capital plan equals $113 billion. Most of what's going here is environmental protection. So these are big projects that take multiple years to build. Housing projects, transportation, and schools are sort of the main big ones. As time has gone on, some of these areas are increasing. So like coastal resiliency, there's a lot of focus on that over the last few years, and there's a lot of more funding in there as well. Yes.
We were told that there was no funding coming from the city for necessarily the Fide Seaport Master Plan and Seaport Services, that there was a pencils down. Can you, doesn't have to be here, but later give me a little bit more clarity and detail on where those climate resiliency monies are going?
Yeah.
And how that is.
So I can speak a little bit about the FIDI resiliency project specifically. There is funding in the city budget for a study on that project. I believe it is federal funding though. It is not city funding. So this budget here, this can include different sources of funding. Most of it will be city, but there's also cases in which there's federal and state funding as well.
Would love to have more clarity offline.
Yeah, so we're gonna go into a resource that might be helpful. So for the next slide that you are gonna see here, this is just a breakdown of how capital funding is proposed and determined. The one thing I will say here that's important is the agencies themselves are responsible for proposing plans to OMB. OMB will then either approve or deny that funding. The city council, when it votes for the capital budget, they don't vote by line item, so they don't vote by project. They group funding for different categories of work within an agency. So this is something that's relevant because when we're talking about advocacy, the way that city council votes on this can be a little bit difficult for a line by line item. So just keep that in mind as you talk with your council members about capital projects. And then the next slide, this is just a bunch of resources on capital projects. We do have a capital budget guide that looks at how, a way more descriptive explanation of how the capital budget works. There's a couple of dashboards that the city has when it comes to capital projects. I will say capital budgets, documents, and dashboards have historically been a little bit hard to understand just because they rely a lot of what the agency decides to put in those descriptions. So even we have a little bit of a challenge looking at these budgets, but if you go to the next slide, the city has been improving their transparency over the last few years. There's this capital projects dashboard that's managed by, I believe, the mayor's office of operations. that lists out all of the capital projects in the city by agency and by community board. So you can come in here. The link is in the resource guide that I just shared. And you look at different projects in your area, their progress, how much has been spent. And in some cases, you're able to see why they've been delayed. That is not always the case, but if you guys have any further questions, you can reach out to us and we'll be happy to take a closer look at some of the documents that we have access to. And then specifically in the next slide.
Full disclosure with this one though, it is notoriously incomplete, the data. So that's why we kind of think that the park capital project tracker is much more gold standard of project tracking.
This is a severe case of agencies not talking to each other.
So that should be something that is called out in the budget.
That's up to you.
IBO is prohibited from making opinions, but that's something.
No, I mean, for the community boards, for me to be able to do what you're showing.
Yeah.
If the data is bad, then it does.
It's not necessarily that data is bad. It's usually an issue of, there's a couple of missing details from one agency to another. I will say it's been a lot better over the last few years. It's the prior administration really spent some time looking into this, but there's definitely areas for improvement.
I would say to avoid reopening conversation on this, on our specific budget response, let's hold that one, but I do think this is a worthy maybe letter that we lead and get the community boards to sign on and do some sort of advocacy around.
And then I do want to point out, as my colleague mentioned, the Parks Capital Project Tracker is pretty much a gold standard that we have. I'm sure we all have park restroom projects in our districts that are delayed and over cost. So you can look at all of that here.
I think that's the budget deficit entirely.
I know public restrooms. I love public restrooms, and I know it's a recurring issue. So yeah, and then the next slide, I'll pass it on to my colleague, but I do really want to stress us as analysts, we're passionate about what we do, and we're really happy to answer questions, make maps, make reports, whatever you're looking into getting more data on. We're more than happy to work on that for you.
That's our map guy.
Yeah.
We'll just skip through this part. Next slide, please. Yeah, OMB, you can see the budget plans there. Next slide, please. Just some definitions that we'll run through with people in order to look at those documents, even though they're very not friendly, but once you know these terms, they're kind of easier to look at. Next slide, please. And then kind of units of appropriation and action, just to demonstrate how the budget has its limitations. So like these budget codes and object codes, they're not mandatory. Like not all agencies, it's all they need to do is put their unit of appropriation. So some agencies even have units of appropriation as big as personal spending and other than personal spending, and that's it. So there's not much granularity that's mandated in the budget. So this is just to show you that DOT actually showed us how many full year positions are under pedestrian ramps in the highway operations. So that's great. But how many full year positions are in District 1? I don't know. The budget cannot tell you. So there are limitations. Next slide, please. And then our last slide, kind of just ending off, you guys were talking about this, the difference between policy versus budget requests. So kind of just impressing upon people that there are places where maybe your advocacy is more well-placed in terms of focusing on the issues of the service delivery rather than getting more funding towards it. Sometimes things are actually budgeted in, there's an item for it in the budget, but there hasn't been people hired yet. So for example, headcount is an issue that can impact service delivery. Maybe that's not a matter of increased funding, but a matter of pressing your city agency to hire people. Sometimes it's an issue of delivery structure. So as you were all talking about, there's a really long procurement process. Nonprofits are not getting paid on time. So that's also another issue that's not budget related and more bureaucracy related. Program structure, like we were just talking about, agencies aren't talking to each other all the time. And that can cause issues. So coordination between agencies is hard. And that's just a last note to leave up on. It's not all just advocacy in the budget, but as community boards, you have the coalition built in to kind of advocate for other places. Next slide, and last slide. Thank you.
And we're happy to take questions. One thing I want to point out as well, based on what we've been talking about so far, just a couple of things that I heard. Somebody mentioned tracking housing production and housing change by community district. This is something that we can take a look at. Has housing stock been declining in certain areas? Specifically, I think we have data by household size. So we can look at, are we building studios only across the city, which is, I know it's something that comes up a lot. Evaluation of homeless services, efficiency and funding, that's definitely something that we can look at over time. And then funding for addiction services, something like On Point New York, that's also something that we have access to within budget data. So again, I want to stress, if you have any questions, please reach out. We'll be more than happy to take them. We have, as my colleague mentioned, we're independent from the current administration, so we have access to data that we have also had a legal mandate to get data, so agencies have to provide that data. So we're able to sort of look at what you're interested in and be very transparent and neutral in our analysis as well.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Maybe we can do maybe like 10 minutes of questions because we still have to do community board reports.
Yes.
I was under the understanding that there was no way to track loss of housing because there's no way, the city doesn't report on it. We've tried to do a deeper dive on that. Is that something that through tax records that IBO would take on?
So we have access to tax record data from the Department of Finance, data that's not publicly available. So we could definitely look at that. One way that I think we could look at it is the Department of Buildings does provide data on new housing units certified by community district. So we can definitely look at how many units have been built and by their size. But if we're looking at specifically at loss of housing stock, it's going to be a little bit more complex, but it's definitely something that I wouldn't say is impossible, and we can take a look at. And if there's anything that we don't have access to, we'll tell you. But in most cases, we do have access to data that's directly answering that question, or data that at least answers part of it. So we can definitely take a look and try.
I was just curious because when I say what we were #1 in number of units lost from 2010 to 24, that came from a DEIS survey that city planning did. So the data there must be some kind of data.
Yeah, and that's the main challenge that sometimes we also face, is that we know agencies have some sort of data, but tracking down that specific data set can be hard. We do have, as I mentioned, a legal mandate it's a power in the city charter that gives us the ability to ask for an agency and they have to provide it. It just can be a little bit tricky to get that data in a timely manner or to get that data completely as we need it.
Yeah.
But that's something that we'll handle internally.
That would be helpful.
Any other questions that I can answer? All right.
Email us.
Thank you. I can share your contact information with.
Yeah, that
Okay,
would be
wonderful. So I will
perfect.
do that, and then I'll also share the slides as well. Thank you both for joining us today. Thank you. Great. So I realized obviously today's meeting has been a lot longer than usual, but we did get through some very important business. So with that, I do want to quickly move on to CB chair reports. Please, if we can keep the reports succinct, because this meeting has gone on for quite some time. And again, if you are able to send in your written report, that's really helpful as well. We want to make sure that it's captured. I think you have to leave after, right?
At noon.
At
So
noon?
I have time.
Okay, well, hopefully we'll be done before noon.
Yeah.
Let's start uptown. So we'll start with CB12 for their report.
Sure.
I'm like,
Put on the spot. So since I last spoke to the borough board in January, I know my second vice chair attended last month. We were in the midst of a nurses strike. I'm happy to report that that's now concluded. New York Presbyterian was the last of the 3 networks to come to an agreement, but they have come to an agreement. We're really excited about that. At CB12M, we've been out in the community. We have established a special committee called our Outreach Committee, and they've been doing incredible work over the course of the application period for community boards, doing recruitment events. And then next Saturday, the 28th, they're actually going to George Washington High School to talk to students about how they can be more active with the board. There's a Minecraft event that we'll be tabling at. Over the course of the next 3 months, we'll be holding 3 separate public hearings. The first is on March 31st, and the topic will be on charter schools. It'll be led by our second vice chair, who's also our chair of youth and education. The second one will be at the end of April, and it will be on the Inwood rezoning, and it will specifically focus on the 25 points of agreement relating to housing and affordable housing. So that'll be led by our Housing and Human Services chair. And the third one, which will be sometime in May and will be done in partnership with the Department of Sanitation, will be on alternate side parking. Our district is a 1 day a week. They would like us to go to 2. We're probably not going to get community support on that, but at least we can discuss enforcement. At our executive committee meeting this past Monday, we passed 2 resolutions. The first is conditionally supporting Senate Bill 1027, which has a companion bill in the Assembly 3615 on extending permanently Section 103A of the Public Officers Law. For those of you who don't know, that is the provision in the law that allows us to have hybrid meetings and for virtual participation of board members. That is set to expire July 1st. If it expires, we cannot continue having hybrid meetings in the manner in which we do today. I know that that was discussed in January. We are conditionally supporting that bill, and we're calling on our city council to pass a resolution to ask Albany to, at a minimum, extend the bill or extend the section of the law for at least 2 more years. And finally, the second resolution from the executive committee is enabling me to write a comments letter in response to the citywide statement of needs. And while the statement does not specifically address anything in Community District 12, our call would be for, because of the move out of 100 Gold Street, that certain agencies, particularly HPD, consider establishing offices not just in one centralized area, but throughout New York City. And so that's what the focus of that comment letter would be. And to conclude, I'll just note a couple more things. We are reintroducing a series that the former chair of Community Board 12 had called Uptown Tours, which touches on landmarks throughout our district. Actually, tomorrow will be the first stop, and it will be at the Shabazz Center, which is where Malcolm X was assassinated. That is in our district on Broadway and 165th Street. We are making changes to our website, so we're looking into doing what 8 of you have already done, which is moving off of the city's website and having a little bit more freedom in the way our website is designed. So we're taking a look to see if that's something we want to do. Our general meeting will be this coming Tuesday, March 24th at 6:30. And for the first time in quite a long time, we'll be holding it in Inwood. For the last, at least since I've been on the board for 4 years, it's only ever been in Washington Heights, but we do serve Inwood as well. And so we will be having our general meeting in Inwood next week. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Anthony. Yeah, I would love to get the dates for some of those public hearings.
You got it.
Thank you. Adem, CB11?
Well, I got to chair my first meeting in person. There was no blizzard. It's definitely easier to chair. Virtual is much harder, believe it or not. I had my vice chair come to my house one day to do it together, and that didn't work too much with the crosstalk. I found out about the inauguration about 40 minutes before it happened, and I got there. So those are just some light notes. I'll just go through like 4 things. One of the most interesting things I did was a walk a member home to 131st Street and Park Avenue. And I'm familiar with the area, obviously, but that's where Manhattan 10's sanitation garage is in our community. And it's just a disaster there. I mean, to call it a garage is, I don't know, most of the trucks are parked under the viaduct on Park Avenue. So it's bad enough that we have 2 separate ones, but one of them is probably in the worst condition in the city. I'm actually meeting with our council person, Elsie Encarnacion, because there's apparently an advisory board that the community is supposed to have to look for a new site. I know that Randall's Island had been considered in the past, but there were worries about traffic coming in and out and if there were available sites. But Councilmember Brewer has introduced the feasibility study for affordable housing there. So I figured they're looking into infrastructure and being able to bring people in and out of there. There could be consideration for a sanitation garage, especially when the Parks Department is looking to build another golf center. that I don't think is gonna really serve our community as much as other communities. The other one is the Second Avenue Subway Task Force. Interestingly enough, I don't think we've met in over a year, but one of my goals is to have us meet often. I've done walkthroughs with my vice chair. We're looking at more micro things right now, how small businesses are being impacted. I'll just focus on that. It's been about 10 years since they did it south of 96th Street or so, yeah, and somehow they claimed they were gonna be improving things and have only gotten worse. But we have a lot of the MTA coming to our meeting, our first one on Tuesday. And then just to some of our goals, you know, the budget process has, I think, been a lot better. Our committees have really had great conversations like we did today. I've spoken to my committee chairs about them really focusing their agendas year long on our budget requests and building agendas around that and bringing the agencies in. Getting more clarity on these generic responses they seem to give that never really kind of address anything. Strengthening relationships with our local electeds. I feel like a lot of what we are trying to do are bills they're introducing at committee. So rather than starting from scratch, we could kind of piggyback and work with them and then kind of have them support the things that we need. And then the last one, I think I mentioned last time, is this Nightingale School from 92nd Street, which is what inspired Gossip Girl apparently, but they are building a 64,000 square foot athletic facility on 108th Street between 3rd and Lexington Avenue. It's got financial assistance from Build NYC. I know they're saving $1 million in the first year from the low interest loan they're getting. It's possible they're saving up to $10 million over the course of the loan. And they're only obligated to give us 100 hours a year, which is nothing. There's been a lot of back and forth there. I've been dealing with EDC because apparently there was a public hearing on all of this and the board didn't know because apparently EDC's idea of outreach is one email to the main board email address. I've actually gotten them to commit in writing that throughout the city, they will be sending a lot more emails to leadership on the board. Obviously, the rest of my questions were kind of they didn't really want to address them. But, you know, I think we're going to continue conversations with them as well as with the school. And a lot of our electeds are going into these meetings with us, which is a very positive note. We haven't had I think the strongest communication in the past, and that was one of my goals, and it seems to be going in the right direction.
Great. Thank you so much. You have a lot happening in CB11 for sure. And yes, outreach is more than just one email. I don't see Marquise here. He's had to leave, but we'll make sure that we get a written report and that's reflected in the April minutes or the March minutes for the April meeting. CB9.
Yes.
Sir, over to you.
Good morning. Good morning.
Almost.
Legionnaires disease is an issue in our district. Again, we have one building, 3333 Broadway, which had 2 cases, which triggers a health department alert. I've been attending several meetings there. The building management has responded fairly well. It's a 1,000-unit building with 5 different towers. So Legionnaires were found in 2 towers of the building. We've been pressing the owners to do testing on all 5 towers, which at this point they have resisted. Health department says they're not mandated to do it under city laws at this point. They are doing remediation, cleaning. They've installed this UV system that detects Legionella, and they've distributed hoses that you attach to your shower. Remove the shower and attach the hose, so the aerosols where the Legionnaires spread. So we are monitoring that very closely. 1727 Amsterdam Avenue is a building that right now contains 2 health centers, and that building is scheduled to be torn down, redeveloped into supportive housing, and then bringing back 1 health center. We're losing dental and ophthalmology as well. We've been fighting this for several months now. A lot of us went down to testify in person that we want affordable housing. The supportive housing, we have quite a bit of that in the community. As many of you know, I was called a NIMBY by my council member and removed from the board. And I keep saying that's not the case. 2 blocks away, they're building a family shelter. 1 block away is a drug treatment center. How much can 1 5-block area hold? That it's just incredible that they're not seeing the whole picture. Anyway, we've been fighting this. We met with other council members besides our own, kind of pushed this through, and like I said, the fight's not over on that. So moving forward. I attended a rally for a cafe. I just want to mention this. To me, this was really important. A cafe in our area is owned by an Ethiopian Israeli person, and they have received anti-Semitic threats for quite some time. A swastika was painted on the building itself. So they had a rally about 2 weeks ago. Tish James, our borough president, the former borough president, council speaker was there as well. And Tish James said she's keeping a very close eye on this, and anyone threatening them will be prosecuted to the fullest of the law. Several Jewish organizations came out for financial support, said they would hold some of their events there, because right now they're closed and only doing special events. So I just thought it was very important that we support that.
And they have really, really good food.
Yes, thank you for that. And I suggested, because the owner is of Ethiopia, she's Ethiopian, but Jewish religion practicing. I said we should expose this to young people in the area, just showing how this works. And so we're looking at doing that as well. So we're just, like I said, supportive, and the food is good. 620 West 153rd Street. It's a building that went up, it's 28 stories. Zoning only laws allows for a maximum of 14 stories. So how did this happen? 14 stories higher than it should have been. We're fighting this as well to see it's occupied, so they're not going to tear down the 14 stories, of course. But what give backs can be done for the community? It's an eyesore. It's like this. It really is. Everywhere in the community you look and you see this thing standing up. It's like, come on. And I'm still pressing, who was the inspector on this? We invited them several times to come to a meeting, we did not knowing this part, just to discuss the construction itself. Never came. Now we know why. So we're following up on that as well.
And then if you can wrap up, Victor, because we are.
This is it. Last 2 things.
Okay.
One of our police officers and our newly assigned assistant chief were on the scene of the 2 protests recently where an explosive device was thrown, and one was Officer Schumann, who worked very closely with us. So we just wanted to congratulate them for doing a great job. And that's it.
Thank you. Again, if people can, please submit written reports as well. We want to make sure that we capture everything. Valerie, over
Hi,
to you.
everybody. I'll bootstrap off of Victor. We had a meeting yesterday with the Assistant Chief Edwards, the guy who jumped the fence, and his team. It was a regularly scheduled meeting over a month ago, so we didn't know that we were going to have heroes in our office. But you know, at Gracie Square, we haven't had a regular occupant of Gracie Mansion in a very long time. So it's a real adjustment for the community to go back to that kind of situation. But I think, and Chief Edwards also agreed that what happened 2 weekends ago had more to do with the protests and the counter protests more than the mayor living in Gracie Mansion. And he assured us that NYPD follows the protests and counter protests, both left and right, and they are sensitized to that. But I just want to say, he asked me to specifically thank the community for how cooperative they were during the entire 2 days, because some people had to stay in their apartments and some people were evacuated. And he just said that the community cooperation made their job so much easier. So I'm happy to say that there's a really good partnership going on there. We talked about crime in the neighborhood. There was a lot of emphasis on homelessness. But, we have a lot of retail crime in our neighborhood as opposed to violent crime on our residents. So we understand the focus, although we told him that we really like to see the officers. I don't care if they eat their food with their takeout on top of the car, but people really want to see them out there in force. And so that's working well. Last night, in our transportation committee, Open Plans suggested a way that they wanted to have a study with DOT. I believe that was approved by at least Community Board 7. We rejected that. We don't want another study of how to close crosstown streets in our neighborhood. Given that we're above the congestion pricing zone line, the traffic is incredible and we don't see how that's going to help us. Just a couple of other things. We remain steadfast in our opposition to making open dining year round in Manhattan. We're fine if Councilmember Ressler wants to do something in Brooklyn, but we believe that this has to be a community by community thing. And we know that other boards have reached out to various council members to oppose the outdoor dining for a number of reasons, including rats, as I mentioned in the budget. I just want to say we have put together, following other models in Manhattan, a neighborhood association cabinet that we have a meeting now once a month prior to our meeting with the service cabinet, so that we can take suggestions, complaints, etc., directly to the direct service cabinet. It's only met once, but it's making a remarkable change in how we could communicate different needs. So if anybody's interested in that.
It's like with block associations and.
Yeah, we have quite a few block associations in our district, and so we've invited representatives from each of those groups to come in.
Can you send me kind of like a framework on that? I'd love to know more.
Okay, and then we're having our once-a-year meeting on Roosevelt Island in April. We're having a lot of issues. The replacement of the F with the M train is not really working well for anybody, and it's a real, the people on Roosevelt Island have very limited transportation options, and it's just not working, and we're sort of at our wit's end. I mean, it's only been in operation for a couple of months, but we don't know how much data the MTA really needs to figure out that this is not working for them. We talked about the shelter a little bit. We're gonna have, and I was inundated last night with many more people about the shelter, a lot of them coming from CB6, but we're happy to have everyone at our meetings. But I think really what this has brought to the fore is that there really is no community input into the siting of the shelter in the initial instance. And so what I have been stressing with the people who've come to the meeting is that we really need to look at the shelter system, how community involvement can start at the beginning, because, I mentioned Victor's neighborhood as well. And, we're not unique. And I mean, we just had a welcome center that's on a block that literally next to our preschool. And the preschool is spending thousands of dollars a month to ensure that there's proper security. And we've had issues. I mean, we're working through them, I think, but there's something wrong with the fact that anybody who has empty space in their commercial building can just put in, hey, we want to have a shelter. And then the next thing you know, you get a notification from DHS that says, hey, there's going to be a shelter. And I can't explain to all the residents that come that this is the way it works, and all that is required is a notification to the community board and a presentation, and then they're off to the races. I don't know what to say. I mean, I don't know if you're following. A lawsuit was filed in our community by some of the residents, and there's technically a TRO. I wouldn't put much money on that continuing, but
we have this.
And then, I don't know if you want to kind of wrap up your report.
The last thing I want to say is this, and I know this was an issue. I know that the DMs met with the so-called Office of Community Engagement. And that was a rather contentious meeting, as I understand it. But I don't really see any community engagement. And like I said, I don't know what it's gonna take to get the mayor's office or whatever office he's put in place to start a relationship with the community boards. But it needs to happen sooner rather than later, because otherwise there's like duplication of effort, or I just don't understand it. And we are passing very important resolutions related to shelters, all of which are mayoral agencies, and we have nobody to contact. So I'm done.
No, thank you, Valerie. Obviously, a lot happening on Office of Mass Engagement really quickly. I am working to schedule a meeting with them because I'm hearing that feedback from all of you. And so once I have that, I will share that concern.
Yeah.
I know part of it was that they're also getting up to speed in terms of staffing and hiring. And so that's been a big part of it, but heard from you and others, and I will kind
I
of
mean,
relay
they
that
could be sending a
information.
representative to this meeting.
We're working on that. So hopefully at a future meeting, they're there.
I have a recommendation on that.
Really quickly.
We don't have a Manhattan one yet. We have a Brooklyn one. And they've been responsive to me, so I could send you his email. Just don't tell him I sent it, but he's getting us into the rental hearings and stuff, so yeah, he's pretty good.
Just say one more thing. I attended city planning's webinar on fast tracking. That was last week. There's a public hearing coming up on April 1st with respect to their rules. And I don't know if that's something that we're gonna respond to in general, but it's coming up and it's being fast tracked. The response is being fast tracked, so.
I appreciate that flag, and maybe that's something we could circulate around so everyone has
sorry.
that. No, thank you. Just that we do have a staff meeting in 30 minutes.
I have a doctor's appointment. I gotta go. Seriously.
I know CB7 is not here. Sandy, over to you, CB6.
So we're looking for additional information on the closing of the 30th Street shelter. Concerns about what will happen to those that are housed there and looking for housing, and also what the plans are for the building. It happens very quickly. No alert to the neighborhood, found out in the Gothamas.
And I found out from you.
Yes, so, and our elected officials don't seem to know anything about much about it. Our land use committee is looking for locations to house one of the schools in our district. And we understand this is common throughout Manhattan. They're going to try and give us a program, and we're going to try and see if there are spaces available. We want to keep the school in the district. That's important. We're proceeding with our task force for Spark, the Science Park and Research Center. They're starting the deconstruction of it, which is really interesting. They're taking it apart. It's going to take a year to do that before they start the real construction. We've been following up with our budget requests with our elected officials, and this is, for some reason, this is one of the first times we've actually been doing that. And it's been very helpful because they give us their requests as well. So we're looking to support some funding that they're looking for. So that's been very good. We're still proceeding with our reimagining the waterfront and looking for support from CB3 and CB8. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, there was something I was gonna say. I will, sorry, I know CB5 isn't here, sorry. There's just a point that I was gonna respond to on the shelter closure. There was a very small, limited briefing for electeds that we sat in on. Our understanding is that there will be more information that will be released publicly in due time, but I'm happy to kind of talk with you offline on some of that. I know CB5 has left. CB4, Rachel.
Thank you very much. 3 quick updates. NYCHA, last time Leslie mentioned the 2 NYCHA FEC campuses, Bolton and Elliott Chelsea campuses undergoing the RAPAC conversion and the need for attention on the soil contamination. As a follow-up to that, we requested an extension on the public comment period for the brownfield cleanup project. And a presentation of the draft remedial investigation work plan for the NYCHA so we can be aware. And then we also requested that the mayor's office include us in future meetings related to the NYCHA development project. The second update is Western Rail Yards. So we sent a letter to the new mayor, city council speaker, comptroller to asking for a comprehensive review of the financing of the project, was shifted from private payment to public financing, meaning New York City will incur the cost which the related companies had agreed to cover. So that we can, so we requested that. And the third update is we, on the point about open dining, outdoor dining, so we had sent a letter to expressing our position, which was up for ratification at our last full board meeting. In relation to expanding access to the roadway sidewalk cafes, and many community members have expressed concern around the year-long dining, and some voiced concern for the costs and burden imposed on the small businesses. So this was a very active discussion. So the board decided to send it back to the committee. And I was told by the committee chairs, the transportation committee chairs, that there was another active discussion about it. So the letter will be is still under works, and it will come back to our next board meeting at the end of this month. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for that.
Yep.
CB3.
I'll keep it super short. I always come here with updates about Essex Market. As some of you all might know or have seen, EDC is proposing a RFP for the first time in 5 years to RFP out their contract with the community partner, which is the Lower East Side Employment Network, or no, sorry, the Lower East Side Partnership, sorry. And so we wanted to review, just take some time to review like management and structure of the community benefits agreement that were agreed upon back in 2012. And so we've spent a lot of time meeting with the vendors and stakeholders, many of the elected partners. Marielle, thank you for joining us on those. But we've found a lot of information about that, and we're requesting for some more time to just do some more engagement, particularly because of the potential change. We just want to understand best what's working and what's not, how we can. Similarly, from what CB6 mentioned, we didn't really have any information or heads up regarding the closure of the shelter and reallocation of services. So we've been engaged in a lot of conversations with DHS, and we'll continue to do so. They'll be attending a CAB meeting and our health committee meeting. Lastly, we're working on potentially, feel likely, an equity report with the CUNY Institute for State and Local Governance. We want to understand better. I think the woman from the IBO mentioned a little bit about this, but explore equity in our community. We want to work with a consultant to look at different focus areas: the built environment, economic security, education, environmental justice, housing, public health, public safety, and transportation, and how equity shows up in all of those aspects of our community. So we'll be excited to engage them in that.
Yeah, would love to see that report when it's produced.
And a few more months, but yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Valerie, CB2.
Okay, great. So it's Madness on Mercer in CB2, and that's March Madness. So the NYU women's basketball team had 91 consecutive wins in their third trip in a row to the NCAA Division III Women's Final Four. They played tonight. They are undefeated at the Paulson Center. They play undefeated Sacramento tonight, and tonight's winner plays for the national championship on Saturday. So we have to root for the home team. Go Violets. Land use. So we do have a resolution, to your point, Valerie, regarding the affordable housing fast track methodology. May have that order, but we have a resolution before our full board that came out of our land use committee tonight. We're recommending the creation of an appeals process whereby errors in the calculation of community district rankings can be corrected. I will share the resolution in its final form once it goes through that, and recommend. So the ranking can't change within the period of review. Once they've made the ranking, it can't change until the next review period.
5 years.
Which is 5 years. Good, yeah, so we're asking for an appeals process. We also recommending that the Department of City Planning requires that the data set include affordable housing units created in off-site buildings. That's not addressed. We're starting to see off-site buildings come online and as of right. And then we're also saying that requiring that the data set include affordable housing units that developers pay into a fund not to build, even though the community district would welcome those units. So that's one point. Another point that is the last point on that is for example, we've had a project before at the St. John's Terminal, which is now a Google site, that we had approved hundreds of units of housing, but outside market forces, so we're dinged for that. So there's not a data set that captures that as well. And then the last one, I want to thank the borough president for his support of our position on 27 East 4th Street, which is the project next door to the merchant's house, and agreeing with our position on that, which was a denial. And that's it. Thanks.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Really quickly.
Did you consider including shelter units in the calculation? By any chance? I just.
We didn't have anything on shelter units in there. I mean, the formula rate is the affordable housing development rate is the new affordable units divided by total housing units. We did call out about floor area and the idea that a unit for a family, a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom is counted the same as
we're doing that
studio and 1-bedroom. So, and again, so it doesn't reward that it's just a unit is a unit. So a 200 unit project would count twice as much, even though it might be 200 studios versus 100 units of 2 to 3 bedroom.
Okay, good.
We
Yeah,
also
we'd love
have
to see
a
that.
resolution on the same.
Oh, great.
Thank you. And yes, go Violets. I'm an NYU alum.
Okay.
So for the record.
No bias.
None at all. Tammy, CB1.
So we actually did not get to the fast track resolution this month, which we know that public comments due April 1st. We will have to do an emergency meeting of exec for some kind because we were overwhelmed with other city planning applications and things like that. So I'm gonna hit start and say, please send me all your stuff because we will really need that. We had our first in land use experience with City of Yes housing authorizations, of which the 3 buildings that were mentioned, we have 0 affordable housing that's being added of these 3 projects. One went to city planning with 117 units on their environmental protection, only to come back to the board with 71 luxury units starting at 2 bedrooms to 5 bedrooms and 1 penthouse. So, and that's a full commercial conversion, and they tell us the pencils don't work. We're a little curious considering 25 water, the pencils worked over there, and no one's willing to share the pencils to explain to us why we can't have affordable housing. And we're really, really sad to see that our estimation of what would happen in CB1 coming true. We had a really robust discussion because we have a full transition with the amount of construction we have with resiliency on the west side, that all the runs, walks, and things that were anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 people to more that come through Lower Manhattan and that have used the Esplanade and Brookfield for the next 5 to 7 years will not be. So we've been doing walkthroughs literally on site with all the agencies and CECM to find new pathways through FIDI, the Seaport, the Civic Center, and ways to ensure that there's still accessibility. It's really complicated, I'm just saying. We did request for LMC, which is a middle school in our district, has requested to expand. There's a school that's closing in their building that they share elevator banks with. They have been asking to expand to be a 6 to 12 for a very, very, very long time. But there's also a push in to create a new AI school, curriculum unnoted for a high school in the same building. And we are hoping to have an AI school. There are 15 other school locations across the city, even just our own borough, that are closing, that this may be a better location for that and to allow LMC to expand so we can have everything. We reviewed the FIDI Seaport Master Plan. It was a 4-hour meeting. Thank you so much. And so the funding is really interesting and curious, but the plan was designed according to their designer to maximize commercial and transportation, not the greater environmental justice needed for the who live and work here. So I'll leave that where that says. And at the same time, we have a massive issue over at the Battery. We welcome you to come and look at the Statue of Liberty through a 7-foot fence that is anticipated to be there for 2 years, as National Park Service has decided that they need to take the entire area that faces the water and block the public from accessing it, even though they use 1 to a maximum of 2 berths. They don't use all 3 that are there. So we're working with our elected officials to try and have conversations, hopefully with National Park Service and Park Police, because that's not, I mean, it's bad. It's really bad down there. We also spoke about outdoor dining. We've done it several times. We did testimony. We understand wrestlers' need, and yes, the needs in the outer boroughs are very different from the needs in the city of Manhattan for our island. I find it hard to understand how CBs 1, 2, and 3, which compromised, no offense, Valerie, I think 60% of the outdoor dining licenses, and yet with historic streets, we have massive issues that are completely different than the boroughs. I mean, I don't understand if anyone was in Manhattan at all after any of these snowstorms. We can't understand how FDNY would be allowing to grant any waivers for any kind of streets that are narrow. And nothing in this legislation accounts for the situation of density, calls for any kind of overview perspective for the larger public realm on that, or the narrow streets. So we have a resolution that basically says if it's a street that's less than 38 feet, there should be no waivers given, and there should be density limitations. So that is a big thing for us. It's been a really, really busy month, and I'm sorry to say I'm going to have to hold an executive committee meeting, emergency one, at some point to be able to do the rulemaking, which is due April 1st and wasn't even presented anywhere. Yeah. So it's a lot. Yeah, I would wish that there would be some kind of streamline, and perhaps the borough president can take this up for conversations, that if you really want public input, understand community boards are off July and August. DOT doesn't even have an ability to create postponements, delays, nothing. It just all comes. So at this point, we will have to have an August meeting, or you don't comment. And that's basically telling the public, you're really window dressing anyway. So I wish that would be something for a future topic. Thank you, and I end my report.
Great, thank you, Tammy. And so with that, we've concluded and heard from all of the CBs. Thank you, everyone. I know that this meeting was a lot longer than usual, but obviously we had a lot of business to get through, so thank you. And with that, can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion.
Everyone's second?
Yep.
Second. Okay, meeting adjourned at 12:13. Thank you.
Okay.
Not that.
Oh, yes.
I've been there.
Just